Roundtable live for December 16th, 2016. I'm Bear, joined by Rockley Smile Mathis Games Northern Lion here for the second episode of December of 2016. Oh wait, no, that's the third one, isn't it? I don't know how to tell
I don't know, man.
Who understands anymore? Oh goodness, it is a fine Friday afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us here for Roundtable. We got a fun show today. We're going to be talking about Twitch IRL, the Ubisoft Club, Final Fantasy 15 Story Patch, Ghostlords, and, of course, our choices for Game of the Year 2016. Mathis is living in an eternal state of darkness now, though, unfortunately, so...
It was so bright until we started the show, and then he turns off all the lights.
What happened? I turned to talk about the docket, and I turn back over here, and you're in a fucking tunnel.
I honestly don't know how that happened because I didn't change. Is it better that now?
A little bit. All right.
Maybe you closed a window with a white background.
Yeah. So I put up when I put the zoom screen up so I can see your beautiful faces. Things get dark.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a light in your room?
I don't want to turn it on, man. That shit's hot.
God,
You know, in the year 1880, Thomas Edison made a startling discovery that one might say illuminated the future of technology.
It's like the literal point of why we have lights is so we can do shows and see each other.
Nah, that's overrated. Shit's overrated.
All right, well, to spare Mathis a minor discomfort, we'll just give him the... oh, yeah, there we go. All right, we at least get a little bit of a fill light.
Yeah, that was tough.
Oh, that was unfortunate.
Is that just the unbearing
heat?
Yeah, the unbearable heat from back there.
My big, not that light, but my big show lights generate a lot of heat.
No, those do. I won't disagree with that. Yeah, man. Okay, let's do a show, I guess.
Can I just say, I'm very amused and entertained by the detailed theories from last episode as to how, like the multi-paragraph theories as to how Mathis stole from GameStop and got away with it. Like on my channel, on the subreddit, on Orion's upload, just like theories. How did Mathis do it?
How long have you been? How long have you been a master thief?
I got away with a lot of it, but I didn't get away with all of it. You guys are just a little too interested.
That was a fun story, man. I like hearing about the grimy little underwork.
Two types of responses. It was, I have a newfound respect for Mathis, or Mathis is a fucking dick. One of the two.
Way to stick it to the man, taking people's $5 pre-orders and keeping them.
Right? Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Good Christ.
So, well, man, last week, I do want to mention, I made a joke about Ryan becoming an esports pro. We had to say goodbye to him as an entertainer for now. I'm not so sure how much of that is a joke anymore with how much time you're spending in H1Z1 this week.
I probably put like 8 hours into H1Z1 this week. Maybe 10 hours, actually. So I've been playing a lot of that, and I've been having a good time with it. It reminds me of playing DayZ back in like 2012, and you're like, it's kind of just like a fun, novel game that is broken as hell, but skates by on the fact that its concept is pretty novel. So, yeah, but like, this is the winner, right? Like, this is the one that won.
Yeah, they duked it out in the arena, like, and they had a fight to the death to determine who got to be the ultimate fight to the death game. That's how that works.
Exactly.
Sure.
Like that Ark standalone game, and the culling, and then I don't even know if DayZ has one. They fought, and like everybody has chosen King of the Kill now.
Even us, apparently. This came out of nowhere, just within our group. It just seems like all of a sudden everyone's in H1Z1 now.
It was, it's had like a recent renaissance, or at least explosion on Twitch, which I think is how it sort of led to it. Like, Dan played a bunch of it, and then Kate watched some, and she's like, that would be good for the show. And then I played it on Kate's show, and then I was like, hey, this is pretty fun. We should play it on the NLSS. And now it's continuing to just propagate outwards.
We played it for a goddamn hour. There wasn't a single zombie. I think the game's broken.
That's the thing, right, with H1Z1, for those who don't know. Initially it was like going to be another online survival game with zombies where you could work with people or work against them. And then they introduced the Battle Royale like gameplay mode, and then then Sony Online Entertainment like let go that entire branch of developers, which meant EverQuest, H1Z1, and whatever. They became Daybreak Games. When Daybreak Games came along, like, we're gonna split this into two because one part of the game is making us money and one is not. So if we split it into two, we could be like, yeah, we're kind of supporting both, but really they're supporting King of the Kill because that's like making them a ton of money, and that's where all of their development went. And I don't know how the survival version of the game is going right now, but I don't hear anything about it ever. So I assume not well.
I've never really had like, I don't know. I have a weird stigma in my head associated with the game, and I think that's just because like I see the Twitch side of it quite a bit, but it does look fun. I mean, I think, like you said, like the premise is there and it's very interesting, but it also does look like it's kind of marred by a few technical issues too.
Yeah, I remember playing it a little bit with Dan probably like 4 or 5 months ago. It was fun-ish. It wasn't my style of game. I didn't really enjoy it that much. And I kind of just like let it go at that. I was like, meh, but hey, if you like
I don't know what's different about this one that's gotten people excited. It feels just like every other one I've seen.
It's more realistic than something like The Culling. The Culling is more like slapstick, hilarious, which I actually find more entertaining than something like H1Z1. Like either I want something, for me personally, obviously, I'd rather have something like The Culling, which is hilarious, like roulette crates being dropped and a lot of things going, or I want something like DayZ where it's like hyper realistic, shoot me in the leg, and now I've got to deal with like a leg brace and that kind of thing. H1Z1 kind of straddles that line in between where it's like somewhat serious, but it's still pretty arcadey and it's shooting mechanics.
See, I'm looking for the really hardcore experience where when I get shot in the leg, I have to wait for like 6 weeks to go to the hospital, and then I have to set it. I've got to, like I've got to do all that manual. I've got to
submit an insurance claim.
Get a pencil and scratch under the casts, all that shit. That's what I'm looking for. H1Z1 simulator.
I'd much rather go in the opposite direction. I'm more in the league of like Quake style games that are just like there isn't any waiting. There isn't any surviving. You spawn in, you shoot people, you explode a lot, and then you respawn. This game is like 10 minutes of queuing to get into a game where you run around for 10 more minutes.
That is one thing. It's like, this is the hardest sell for me is I know that as soon as I pick this game up, like the first 4 games, I'm not going to get a kill, and I'm going to die in like 5 minutes and spend the next 30 queuing up, right?
The queue thing is overblown. If everybody's on the same page, the queuing takes like 5 minutes. All right. It's just somebody's all tabbed. They don't hear like, is everybody queued up? And then all of a sudden the lobby, like it pops, 4 people end up in a game, 1 person doesn't, and then you got to all quit back to the lobby.
Is it a long queue because you're queuing as a team? Like, is it faster if you queue solo?
The queues, I have never been in a 5-man queue that was longer than 5 minutes.
That's not bad.
I guess I'm spoiled from stuff like Call of Duty and Halo where it's just a smooth transition from one match to the next and there isn't really any waiting around. And that's even slowed down from the older games, the more arcadey ones, which was basically just nonstop.
Yeah. I think that also has to do with the fact that those matches only have like 10 to 15 people in them, while H1Z1's queuing up for like 120-something.
The other thing is, like, if you actually just hunker down for like the first 5 minutes, you're probably going to play like a half-hour-long game. Like what we talked about on the NLSS yesterday is like, for people who haven't seen it or played it, you like parachute in and 100 people all parachute in and they like choose where they're going to go. And there's only like maybe 50 spots on the map that actually have places that people want to go to.
Sorry, I'm trying to match up my face with the little Mathis resub face on
the
screen. What? Your little face shows up when someone resubs, so I was like trying to match up my face with it. Yeah, there you go.
Very confused
Sorry,
about
that. Go ahead.
But like, yeah, so like basically everybody lands in a space where they're probably going to have to fight someone. So out of like 150 people, 40 or 50 die within the first 2 minutes of the game every time. But if you survive that, then you're much more likely to make it like 20 extra minutes into the game.
I got it.
And that's where I think like the actual mechanics are not necessarily super strong. And you know, there are some bugs, like no doubt. When Rob disconnected and all of us sunk into the ground and then exploded because we were in the car he was driving, that was pretty funny, but also like busted. Yeah. But the emerging gameplay I think is really good, and that just, you know, kind of like road tripping around with your friends, but also knowing that in like an instant you could have your life snuffed out is like that's the draw for me.
There's a point, there's a point Dan made too, in that there is a lot of gravity associated with dying in that game, which does add a lot of tension to it.
Just wait, we got a new like, this is great, all great and all, but wait till the Conan survival game comes out in the future.
Ooh, yeah.
Conan
Conan the Barbarian.
Hey, listen, that's how I say it, all right?
Is it two nans that let you play in cooperative action?
My nan's playing the game.
Oh, that's cute. Conans. There's just I already see the box art. It's like that Kane and Lynch Dog Days, but with two grandmas. You know
Two
what I'm talking
grandmas,
about?
and they got their oven mitts on. They're cooking together.
Conans.
There's no spectate mode after you die in H1Z1. I swear there was.
There's like a death cam that like zooms in on the person that killed you or whatever, right?
I thought there was like you could follow your teammate around now.
There is in the test server now, but not in the main build, the production build.
All right. Well, if you're not in the business of going on death joyrides with your friends, perhaps you are in the business of folding laundry, and that's what you can do now on Twitch IRL.
That's an interesting segue. I didn't know where you were going for a minute. That was very.
I tried to build it up.
Like a new simulator, like laundry folding.
Was that Renee?
That was Renee last night.
Yeah, okay. I thought I knew that story from somewhere.
Yeah, she was just streaming folding laundry, man. It was great. She had like 700 people there. Twitch.tv/IRL. It's the new feature for Twitch. Twitch is all about much more than sharing live gameplay, which is weird, given that that's the foundation of what Twitch was built on, and was exclusively for a while and was supposed to be. While still steeped in gaming culture, Twitch has become a social video platform for all kinds of passionate people and communities, both gaming and non-gaming alike. I don't want to read any more of this, but I want to... I want to note the very obvious first thing here. Twitch is just becoming Justin TV again, and they're pretending they're not.
It's like taking a sock, putting your hand all the way in, and then pulling it inside out.
Yeah.
That's what Justin TV did with Twitch.
They were honestly, I think they were incredibly intelligent.
I hope you like that metaphor.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Honestly, they were incredibly intelligent by rebranding. Basically, what they took is their most successful platform, relaunched their platform based on that, and then slowly brought back everything else. And let's be honest, we live now in a time where like the Truman Show would thrive. Like that, if there was a Truman Show, people would fucking watch it because there's this obsession with watching their favorite internet persona live their everyday lives. I mean, people are already cooking like online and like watching people cook and chat and play video games and do all those other things.
Oh my god, it's crazy.
It doesn't surprise me that there is a Twitch IRL and that there will be people who just want to watch people. We already have fucking community eating. Like,
yeah,
this is not surprising.
This was just the final step, really, because this encompasses everything, right? And there's still community guidelines, I guess. There's still like limits on what you can and can't broadcast, but the IRL is just real life.
I can't stream myself banging somebody.
You can. That's a different website, but
not yet. Anyway,
there's no category anymore. It's all just okay. You can do basically anything you want,
but make sure you're in the correct category for whatever.
Yeah, sorry. There's categories, but I meant like
make sure there's no idling during a speed run, or you're going to get a 48-hour ban or suspension.
Wait, what is that?
You hear that?
No.
So part of a speed run, a part of the route for a Batten Kaito speed run, is the game idles for 20 minutes because it's faster to let the game idle for 20 minutes and do whatever the hell, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the guy got a 24-hour or 48-hour suspension because he wasn't playing the game.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I'm like, come on.
That's bizarre.
That's got to be like just an anomaly situation, but that's still silly.
I've not played games for over an hour at times, and nobody's said shit to me.
Well,
am I going to get a warning now?
This is I'm not opposed to this. I don't want to sound like I'm in the anti-IRL camp here because I'm fine with it. It's very interesting to me that basically like what Mathis said, Twitch has done a great job of elaborately rebranding themselves over the course of like 6 years and is now still tapping into every single demo that Justin could, but in a much better and more marketable approach, more or less. Yeah.
Do you guys want to start a reality show now that we can?
I guess we should, right? That's the next logical step.
We got to move into an apartment for 2 months, stream every waking moment, have cameras in every single room, and we could probably make bank.
You know, there's websites like that, man,
I'll
for
get
real.
each other after 2 months, but it's fine.
There's websites like I've never used them, but there's websites where you can like go just watch webcams of people just living their lives. You know, it's like the Truman Show basically, but they're voluntarily doing it.
I don't think you're supposed to go to those websites. Those are the ones that like laptops are affected by malware or something like that.
No, it's like
watch people without their knowledge.
It's like people are signing up to this website to voluntarily broadcast their life to people. So they're just putting webcams in their house and being paid to do what they do and allow some strangers to watch it. It's very strange.
I'm going to put a subscriber incentive. If we get to 10,000 subscribers, I turn on the toilet cam for a full day. So you can watch us shit.
You don't even understand. We do some creative shit in the toilet, man. Like that's where the magic happens.
We're professionals.
To Tada's point, how long until we start seeing Twitch as Big Brother?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was intending to mean when I just brought that up, yeah.
Yeah. And what's the prize?
You get to
you get a hoodie.
You get your own.
The hardest thing to get of all time.
Oh, come on, man. You get your own global emote. Let's get a little.
Okay, there we go. That's good. A new cheer emote, right? That's kind of a new feature, too. I want to give Twitch some kudos, actually. They have done some really good stuff this year. Ryan, you were mentioning this the other day, too. They've actually been on the up and up quite a bit with Twitch Prime, with the new cheering and the emotes. Like the free bits for people, basically, via watching ads is really cool, so...
Yeah, I mean, there's a subset of the internet that any policy change will be perceived as a negative. But I think Twitch has done pretty much all they can this year to like promote their platform positively and get as many people on board as possible. At least from the streamer perspective, like Twitch Prime is a no-lose situation. Even people that are like overtly cynical all the time, I've never heard anybody complain about Twitch Prime. It's basically just Amazon giving streamers free money with a value add, and probably selling a lot of Amazon Prime in the process. But like that was extremely generous. And then cheering, I think the tide has turned, and people are like, it's the default now is that it's on.
Yeah,
and people just accept it. And Twitch, I think, actually did a good job of smoothing things over by being like, sure, you have to buy bits from us, but we're also going to give you bits for watching ads that you can then, funnel back to the streamers. So I think that was a good thing. Twitch, I can't remember if creative was this year or last year, but that's been positive. Social eating, who cares? And Twitch, I mean, like, really though.
Yeah.
Not to be insulting if that's the way you make your living on Twitch. It's not like we do anything that's more noble than that necessarily. And Twitch IRL, I'm like, again, like it's not the kind of thing that I'm interested in, but sure. At least now you won't be banned for doing that.
Yeah.
So that's.
And as cynical as I like being, about Twitch stuff, and I was pretty cynical about bits, and I'm not thrilled about bits, but like you said, I think we've all come to a point where we've at least accept them and for what they are at this point.
Nah, I still think it's a shitty cut.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
but like that's tipping is still there at least. Like they didn't remove that. I can't help but like again we're talking before, just comparing it to like what YouTube, not necessarily the algorithm changes. I don't want to talk about that shit, but like what YouTube has done as far as new things for their community isn't much. I will give YouTube the comment thing.
That was like the one thing that stood out. It was like, well, they did this, and
yeah, because YouTube
Is that
Heroes was like
all?
a flop. YouTube Heroes didn't do anything, but at least YouTube has done like they've actually made comments something manageable. Like if you really want to manage comments, you can now. But comparing the two, it's like Twitch is kind of putting the pressure on YouTube to like do some new stuff, and hopefully we see, that competition make YouTube do some new things in 2017. I'd love to see them do some new stuff.
it's kind of funny that you bring up YouTube Heroes. I remember it feels like the sky is falling every month when you're a YouTuber, but that was one that people were particularly inflamed about.
Nothing happened.
Yeah, nothing happened at all.
They made this big to-do about YouTube Heroes, and then 2 weeks later, it was gone.
Yeah.
Much like YouTube Gaming.
Yeah. Well, that's still kicking.
With such a non-presence, the YouTube Heroes thing, that I almost thought for a while, I was like, wait, did they just announce that it's eventually coming?
No.
Did it happen?
It's still, well, I thought it was still in place, wasn't it? It's just like, it's not really doing
Nobody
anything.
does anything. Yeah, it's like, they're like, do you want to work for us for free? And surprisingly, everybody said
It was
no.
a resounding no, heard across the country, so yeah.
But all of our videos did get demonetized because we said the word "fuck." You know? So I mean,
I forgot about that.
That was pretty bad. I remember
I forgot
that.
about that.
We didn't
That
bother
was-
mentioning it until now. We've been just sort of coasting, but you know,
Yeah.
Patreon.com/roundtable.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That's a joke. We're fine. So Twitch
Yeah.
IRL. It's interesting. This is my favorite part of this. Is there's a question in the FAQ for this that says, "Is Twitch turning back into Justin TV?" Justin TV was a platform built to house random content, while Twitch has always been hyper-focused on you, the community. It doesn't.
There's no comparison there. What do you mean?
It doesn't mean anything.
Let's put down Justin TV and then misdirect the actual question.
They just like ask us a completely different question. Basically, it's like, "Well, do you like oranges or apples?" Apples. Well, there you go. Clearly, it's not Justin TV anymore.
Yeah, I see no issue with Twitch IRL. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
No, it's fine. We're just goofing. All right. Speaking of things we have no issue with, almost certainly, Ubisoft. Sorry, we call them Ubi. I'm on
We're
shorthand
first
with
name
them.
basis.
Those of us in the industry, you understand.
I love Ubi. He's a good guy.
They're my second favorite publisher next to E.
I got you. That's damn it.
Electronic
I can't
Arts.
think of another one. I was gonna try to make a joke that it wasn't EA, but it's only EA. Okay. Right now, you can go to club.ubisoft.com and get a whole bunch of games for free. This is more or less just a PSA. Again, I think we've mentioned this a couple of times on the show already. They've only been doing like one game per month, but right now you can download them all. That includes Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, Splinter Cell, Rayman Origins, The Crew, which is a new release, actually. That came out like last year. Beyond Good and Evil, Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, awesome game. Assassin's Creed 3, awesome game. So there you go. Really good
I will
package there.
personally vouch for Beyond Good and Evil. I recently did a video on it. It is super good. It is really, really good. Definitely play it if you can.
Prince of Persia: Sands of Time is one of my wife's favorite games, actually. Rayman Origins really solid too. Actually, like every game in here, maybe besides The Crew, is worth playing. It's a really solid lineup.
Oh, is the crew just terrible? Because I thought somebody had some like validating.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not the guy for The Crew, so I shouldn't say that. I don't have a valid opinion on The Crew, to be honest. But
Well, as we established the other day on the NLSS, I love road trips, so I like the idea of getting in a virtual car and driving across virtual America that's super tiny.
no wonder you love Final Fantasy 15 so much, man.
It all works out, right?
Yeah.
Did you play the new Forza, Nick?
No. Does that have road trips?
I mean, that's like the whole point of the game, isn't it?
I don't know.
It's a giant
I don't know.
open world.
I think they might have cars in that game. I'm not sure though.
That's about as much as I know, and I've seen the cover.
Yeah.
It's on PC, but I don't know if it's a Windows 10 only thing.
Yeah, of course it is.
All right, so this is a segment that doesn't even necessitate me changing the topic text. Suffice it to say, you should go download a whole bunch of free games courtesy of Ubisoft. You'd have to get Uplay, that's the condition, but it's free games, come on. All right.
Makes it 7 games for $0. That's way better than Super Mario Run. 70% of a game for $10. Am I right?
Ooh, shit.
I've heard Mario Run is kind of garbage, but I haven't played it, so I don't know.
I've heard Mario Run is the best iOS game of all time.
Mathis, you look like a Smurf. It's made you blueberry colored.
God, I can't fucking see you at all, man.
We're good. We're back.
All right. Let's talk about something that happened last week. Or no, actually, this hasn't happened yet, but it is on the way. Final Fantasy 15 is getting a patch pretty soon, which is not newsworthy in any way, apart from the fact that it's adding story to the game, which is a very unique thing, especially for a title that has been in development for so long. I can't really think of actually a very good parallel for this. Do you guys have like an example you can think of off the top of your head of a game, a major release adding story via patch?
The only I think of two things: Mass Effect 3 and its DLC that changed the ending.
Yeah, even though that didn't really do much.
And then Witcher 2 got a patch about a year later that drastically changed the opening of the game.
Oh, okay.
But it's the only two I can think of.
So, newly planned set of updates. It'll add cutscenes and will improve the 13th chapter, which is apparently a bit of a grind for most people. Yeah, so the devs are looking to delve deeper into the story. They're adding scenes that will give you insight on character motivations. Really, it's it's exactly like it sounds. They're adding and changing the story of Final Fantasy 15 post-release. I don't know how I feel about it.
It made me stop playing it for now.
Yeah.
Like, I put a few hours into it. I was playing it maybe once every couple days, like when I had some spare time. Now I'm gonna wait because I don't want to get the inferior experience toward the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's what Rumble Muffin suggested I do, is wait as well. There's a lot of like supplementary content with Final Fantasy because I'm told there's going to be DLC expansions for each individual other character other than the main character.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be able to sort of get some of their motivations. And then there's also the movie, which also fills in some of the backstory.
Yeah.
There's like a whole little mini universe happening just for 15. And so far I've touched very little of that. And I guess I'm just sort of waiting until that chapter 13 is amended. As I heard, it's like an awful escort mission with stealth, something like that.
Yeah.
And it just, ugh.
So I'm debating two sides in my head here. Of I don't agree with the idea of adding story post release. I feel like that's just a little underhanded and doesn't really speak to the game's strengths if you're having to do something like that post-release. It almost sounds reactionary, doesn't it? It almost sounds like they wanted to release the story this way, but so many people were upset with it that they felt as though they had to do something.
It kind of reminds me of like a reverse Final Fantasy 13 in that most of 13 was a narrow experience until the end where it was open. And now it's like 15 is mostly open until the end where it's a narrow experience. I do wonder how much of it was rushed just to get the game out there because it's been in development for goddamn forever.
Yeah. That makes sense, too. It's certainly a common thing I'm hearing is that as you get further on, it becomes a lot more linear, and it really does give you the idea that they had to force themselves to cram a bunch of stuff in at the end.
I'm enjoying my time with it still. Like I said, I'm going to put it on hold for now. But it's been an interesting experience playing it so far because it feels the world is gorgeous, and I just kind of going off on a tangent, I guess.
Sure.
The world is gorgeous and beautiful, but it feels incredibly empty. That's my impression of the game so far. There's a lot to look at, but there's not a lot out there, and that's kind of shitty. There's a lot of monster hunting involved. There's a lot of go get contracts to fight monsters, go fight the monsters, come back and get the money for it. Like, this is kind of monster huntery.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the world. Like, when you're driving, there's cars that drive by, but they're rare. There's nobody wandering out there. There's just nothing really out there.
Besides, like, enemies, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've...
There's scripted stuff, too, occasionally.
I haven't hit any yet, but that's just me, maybe.
I'm kind of the mentality that there may be enough here still, even though, despite what you just said, I still do feel through what I've experienced over like 15 to 20 hours that there is a ton of content, and I'm not even into like chapter 3 yet, So I can't find myself getting too upset about this because of not only that, but the fact that it's even if I was that deep into it and I felt slighted by the story, I don't know. I don't even know if I would be that upset anyway.
Right.
Like, I feel as though I should feel slighted by this, but I don't. I'm just kind of okay with it.
And I feel like the majority of the strength the game really has to offer comes from how quirky it is. It's a very odd game. It's really not like anything I've really played before, even though it's got conventions and bits and pieces from other games I have played before. So anytime when they go off a departure from what I think makes it better, which in this case is, again, the quirkiness, towards something more linear, it's like I've kind of left behind the main selling point at that point anyway. So if it's just to finish up the story, it's sort of like it's the last mission, you kind of wrap things up and you call it together. It is the last mission, right? 13 is the end?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's towards the end of the game, at least I know that much. So by then, I guess you've kind of gotten the majority of fun out of it that you may have been planning on getting. And like Bear said, I'm also, I think, about 15, 20 hours into it and very early in the game, and I'm still enjoying it. Although I will say that whole cup of noodle thing is like real weird. Have you guys seen that?
No, I don't
the
think
game
so.
just kind of turns into like an advertisement for cup noodles for a while.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
What?
No, I saw it.
Really strange.
What happens?
You like go buy cup noodles and then they like tell you about how great they are.
What the fuck?
I am very surprised to see an advertisement in Final Fantasy after
needed more money for development.
They also have freaking Coleman camping gear labeled all over the game.
Oh.
Remember the first time I walked by a Louis Vuitton and saw Lightning from Final Fantasy 13 holding a $5,500 handbag. You're like, yeah, it's art. It's art.
Just very strange.
That is...
Like I said, it's a quirky game. Maybe it's a good thing that it's that out there. Granted, they probably didn't need the extra bump, but whatever.
That sounds made up, man. That sounds
it's real.
hilariously fake.
And
Holy
the Coleman
shit.
gear is hilarious.
Yeah.
It shows up in the pictures all the time, by the way. Like, he seems to take pictures that put the branding into the corner of the picture.
So it'll be like, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like half of Prompto's photos, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Like, he fell over while he was taking the shot. He's got this weird-ass angle or something, but... Then you've got, I'm sure, the ones with the Campbell's Soup logo just perfectly planted on the corner, and that are just these artistic masterpieces.
It's like right, exactly. It's right in the corner. It's the main focus, like where the lens focus, but in the back is
all just smiling with thumbs up.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I really enjoy the super broken pictures that he gets, where somebody's half phased through the ground or into a rock. I want to see a whole Tumblr of just those.
Yeah, Prompto's broken pics.tumblr.com.
Yeah, do it,
please.
Why not?
Good stuff. Man, I do like. We're just talking about quirky shit that we found in Final Fantasy 15, I guess. But there's the part early on where you're talking to the cafe owner and he's asking you to go get a can of beans, and Noctis says to him, "I'm gonna try to quote verbatim, beans." It's great.
Good lord.
And they let it hang for a second after he says it too. And the guy's like, "You don't like him?"
I kind of get the impression they had a great time just doing stupid shit in that game just to have fun and laugh about it.
Yeah.
It's got a bizarre air to it. It's sort of a jovial game with this overhanging sense of dread.
I think
I've rarely seen atmosphere like that before.
Yeah, that goes along with how you mentioned, they're combining that sense of fantasy and mysticism with a very modern and futuristic appeal. And I think that kind of goes along with the mixture of real intensity and emotion coupled with beans. It's it's a very interesting dichotomy through the whole thing.
I wonder if the combat system in Final Fantasy 15 is similar to what they're going to use in the remake of 7.
I would guess it is, yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Based on a little bit of video footage we've seen, probably fairly likely, yeah.
Mm. Sweet. All right. Final Fantasy story patch. It's not a big deal. I am probably not even going to get to this point, or even close to this point, before this patch hits. So really, I'm not even worried about that. But okay. Are you guys following the story real quick before we move on? Are you invested in the story at all up to this point?
Not yet.
I'm still so early. There's been very little of it.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
There was that one cutscene that was just a big chunk of the movie that they pulled out and put in the game.
Yeah.
And then there was one more sequence after that, and that's about all I've seen of the story.
The introductory cutscene, that's from the movie too, isn't it?
I don't know. Maybe. I haven't seen the movie.
Kind of seems like it. All right. Hey, Nick. You want to talk about Ghostlords?
Sure thing. So Ghostlords is a game that I've been playing in the last week or so, and it's a game that I didn't expect to like as much as I do. So I wanted to bring this up for everybody's sake so you can go check it out if you're interested. So Ghostlords is a strategy RPG with a little bit of a Pokemon meets FTL vibe. And what you do in this, essentially, there's been this event, I think they called it the Rending, where all across the UK, and specifically the game takes place in Great Britain, there's been all these souls pulled out of people and just left hanging in the air. And you play as a character known as a Ghostlord who can go around and summon and use those souls for combat. So what ends up happening is you go through from one node to the next, sort of like an FTL, seeing different events happen. You can choose how you want to react to those events. Oftentimes results in a battle, and you may or may not get to collect and add another ghost to your team. You can have up to 3, and every game is presented sort of like permadeath. So there's this big, long event that'll come across, this big campaign, And there's 5 campaigns in total, actually. Each campaign takes about 2 hours or so from my experience. And you start at the beginning, work your way down through a series of branching nodes. Each time you get through a set of nodes, there's like a chance to heal and rest up and possibly change some of your attributes and your pickup items and such, and try and hopefully make it even further. And there's a little bit of an element, too, where if you collect a ghost at all, it shows up as an item you can use or a character you can choose from to start your team with on the next run. So it's got a little bit of that Rogue Legacy style, like regenerating ability to change the framework of how you're playing the game. I played probably about 6 hours, 6.5 is what Steam says. And I only finished one of the campaigns. Granted, I did finish it on my second try. It wasn't terribly hard. I think I did it on the hardest difficulty level as well. But it was enjoyable. There was a lot to it to figure out, a lot to tease apart. The art's pretty simplistic. If you're not super into pixel art stuff, this might be a little bit on the low end for you, but I found that it supplemented the gameplay very well. The music was fine. I had no problem with the controls. The layout of the UI, for the most part, was intuitive. A couple minor gripes with it, but it was, really minor stuff. And just in general, I just think it's one of those games that's been very much overlooked. So I just want to recommend everybody go check out Ghostlords if you're at all interested in Pokemon-style stuff.
Sweet.
Sounds cool.
I think you might have noted it a little bit, but the actual combat, it's turn-based entirely, right? Or
Yeah,
as
it's
far as I
rock,
can
paper,
tell.
scissors, kind of very much like Pokemon-style combat. Elementally charged ghosts fighting other elementally charged ghosts, and you got to find the best counter. And since you can only have 3 on your team, and granted you can change out which ghost you have active at any time without taking a penalty, so you can switch them on the fly. Since you can only have 3, you may end up with a setup that just isn't compatible with the fight you're in. So you've got to be a little bit tricky about how you deal with those situations. And it can just wipe your whole run. Like, you could be an hour and a half in, get a bad match, and just you're done.
Yeah, gotcha.
The game's also fully moddable and has Steam Workshop support, and the developer has been encouraging to get people involved in using the templates they've put out to create more ghosts and just add to the rosters and make new events and campaign areas and all kinds of stuff. So if you're into modding, another thing for you to check out too.
Sweet. All right.
It's only $10 also.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, only $10 available now.
That's cool.
I think you'll get at the very least 20 hours of gameplay out of it if you like the premise. I can imagine there'd be a lot more though if you get even deeper into it.
Yeah, I might actually check this out. This looks playable.
I keep recommending people to try it on main menu because people are like, there's no games. Like, there's a game right here, try it. And everybody's like, ah.
Not everybody's already playing it though. I don't want to have to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, just instead of going, just try it for a minute.
Yeah.
You might like it.
Yeah. Cool. All
You know,
right.
before we go to the games of the year, you know what else we can talk about?
Sure,
We want
what's
to
up?
fill some time.
Mm-hmm.
Dota 2, huge patch.
Oh shit! Yeah, 7.0, right?
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
willing to talk about it because I've been
Are
following
you gonna
it.
play it again?
I'm probably going to play a match or 2, and then I'll probably drop it like I do every time.
All
But
right,
I'm
yeah.
excited to try it regardless.
Let me know about it. I am curious.
So Dota 2, for those who don't know, 7.0 dropped, and for how big that is, Dota has been in the 6.0 or 6 point whatever since 05, and it hasn't moved to a big number change since
Shit.
05.
Yeah, that's
ever
crazy.
since Ice Frog took over the development of the mod in Warcraft 3. So it's always been 6 point something. It is now 7.0. And to indicate how big it is, usually every patch, I usually watch Purge. He does like a patch overview, changes of what's going on. Usually they're about an hour, 2 hours long. His patch overview was 9.5 hours long.
Jesus
They-
Christ!
9.5
dude.
hours.
Yeah, it was over. it was
Oh
9.
my god!
So basically, this is a big enough change where you might as well call it Dota 3. Like, it is a drastically, wildly different game. The map has been totally changed. They've brought in elements of other MOBAs. There's a little bit of Heroes of the Storm in there, in that now, instead, when you level up in old Dota, you would choose ability or put it into, ability points. Now there's a talent tree, so you can put it into your abilities or to one of your talents. So you can get, one talent unlocked level 10, 15, 20, 25, stuff like that. And they are unique to each individual hero, so you can drastically change how your hero levels up and how they play. There's a backpack mechanic now where you have your 6 slots and you have a backpack that gives you 3 additional slots. You don't get the benefits of the things in the backpack and you can't activate them, but you can pull them out of the backpack and there's a 6-second delay between when you take them out of the backpack and when you can use them. So there's less.
Oh, that
moving
is that's really interesting. That's
they've
gonna add a whole freaking another layer, isn't it?
They've all, yeah. Basically, all the changes I from my very amateur standpoint has made the game more aggressive. There's like a little well you can go to, much like Heroes of the Storm, that you can go up and like get a quick heal out of every like few minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
The map has been rearranged completely. They've introduced the first hero that has not been in Dota ever, so they're not porting heroes over from the mod anymore. The first brand new hero has brought in from 7.0, which is the Monkey King. And he has some really interesting, and he's very, very powerful. He'd probably get nerfed very quickly, but it's a drastically different game. It's people are shouting like it's a lot more casual friendly. I'd agree it is partially more casual friendly, but it is still fucking Dota, and it is still very hard and harder than Heroes and harder than League, in my opinion. And I'm excited to try it out. It looks a lot of fun. People have been jumping in, and TB's been playing, and he wants to play with people, so I'm probably gonna try and get a couple games in, play a couple games, realize I'm trash, and then put the game away forever until the next big patch.
Oh, of course. When TB wants to play Dota,
You want to play? You want to play
Mathis
Dota?
is ready to go.
I've been asking people to play Dota every time a patch comes out. You know who says they want to play? Only TB. You won't play
when
Dota.
Mathis, when we want to play H1Z1 with Mathis, he goes, "Yeah, I own it, but I don't know if I have time to install it right now."
Hey Ryan, you want to race Isaac?
Not really.
All right, then.
As someone who has played a decent amount of League, I will echo the sentiment that Dota 2 is much more difficult and will likely still be much more difficult to pick up and learn. And I probably still won't. It's interesting.
Having a freaking like proper spectate mode yet? For Christ's sake.
Yeah, that's a little silly.
Or replay mode. Sorry.
All right, cool. Dota 2
Hey,
7.0.
what, 10 minutes time? There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, appreciate it. All right.
Invicta, I'll play with you, man. If you want to play, if TB already installed, I just need someone to play with. I can't play that game alone. I can't.
You shouldn't. No one should. It's
I get so mad.
It's against the doctor's orders. Do not play Dota 2 by yourself. That's just asking for trouble. All right, y'all. Ladies and gents, boys and girls.
Time.
2016 has come and gone, and with it, it has brought a slew of very, very good games. We had I don't want people to forget. We had a pretty awesome year in 2016 as far as games are concerned. Lots of really awesome releases. A pretty solid lineup of nominees here as well for our game of the year. Now, we're not doing anything fancy or formal here. This isn't really anything different from any sort of typical roundtable conversation, but I don't know. We may try to come to a consensus. Maybe we'll all just sort of issue our own personal game of the year at the end of the segment, but let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? Anybody want to submit something for the review of the panel? Oh no, out of the gate. What?
Witcher 3.
Whoa.
Overwatch is a very good video game that will endure for at least 1 to 2 more years, but possibly like 8 to 10 more years.
Like Pokemon Go.
Like Pokemon Go. Overwatch is certainly a front runner for me. And we mentioned when we were talking about the Game Awards nominees that it is interesting that Overwatch is a front runner for a lot of people, despite the fact that it doesn't have a single player campaign. I wonder if the story that they're presenting in the cinematics and the trailers and stuff is sufficient for that, or if people just don't really give a shit anymore.
My hypothesis is that, well, let me put it this way: like, if you're Respawn right now, you know that old like 4chan picture of Shigeru Miyamoto where he's like complaining about the reaction to every Legend of Zelda game, where he's like, I made Twilight Princess, or I made Wind Waker so cartoony and everyone complained that it wasn't, you know, dark and gritty. So then I made Twilight Princess dark and gritty, and now you love Wind Waker. And then I made Skyward Sword more like Wind Waker, and everybody wants Twilight Princess. Like, if you're Respawn, you're like, okay, I made Titanfall. Amazing multiplayer, no single player, because you don't need single player. All you need is the multiplayer. And people said, I'm not paying $60 for that. And then they're like, okay, I'll tell you what. We'll put a single player campaign in the game. We'll make the single player campaign even better than the multiplayer. And people were like, sorry, you eroded my confidence with the first one. So I'm not gonna do that either. Like, you're just screwed either way. But I think what basically it is there's like the Blizzard rule, which is that no conventional rules apply to Blizzard. They can just do whatever they want, and people will buy it. That's not to say that Overwatch doesn't deserve to be purchased, just that like the traditional roadblocks, for whatever reason, no longer apply to Blizzard. Maybe because like with Titanfall, you had to convince your friends to buy it, whereas with Overwatch, it was like on day 0, everyone was like, "I'll see you at 9 a.m." for when Overwatch unlocks.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you there. Personally, I really didn't care at all that there was no story associated with it, because it was one of those games that just was so easy to pick up and play. And you know, I probably just generally care a lot less about story in games as I've gotten older too, which is, you know, a very subjective factor, but is the case anyway. But Overwatch really just doesn't need it at all. It's just pure fun, man. It's certainly this year's Rocket League for me, in that it was the game that I spent the most nights staying up till 3 a.m. playing, and probably had the most fun, too.
I feel like if you were to put it on the table, that you could either have a story mode in Overwatch or one more Tracer skin, the majority of the fans would probably take the Tracer skin.
No way, really? I don't think so. Come on, a full-fledged story mode?
I'm being a little hyperbolic, but also I just feel like people's priority just isn't there for the story mode. They just would rather have more stuff to collect.
But like I understand the cynicism about collectibles, especially when there's real money involved, but I don't know why Overwatch needs a story mode to be better. Like that's a game that's 100% mechanics driven. And like any story mode, I feel my perspective is that it would just be an artifice to be like, we added a story mode. Like, I just don't understand why a game like chess doesn't have a story mode, soccer doesn't have a story mode. Like, if a game is that mechanically strong, you know, the story
career mode though. Come on.
Yeah, but like that's not what people watch or care about. Like 3 years after it's out, they're not watching like, you know, me play against Mission 8 in StarCraft. They're like, hey nerd, you didn't put your first Zergling down fast enough. You know.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind a story mode. I think it would actually be kind of fun to not have to have a group of people to play with if you want to try and unlock stuff. Granted, I know that's the majority of the point of the game is to play it with friends, but I also love to play games by myself. Just play music and play all night.
I honestly can't help but wonder what if like these are the mechanics left over from Project Titan, what the MMO aspect would have been like.
Weirdly enough, I was doing I mentioned this to you guys before, I was doing a top trending script on like 10 facts about Overwatch, and it was mentioning how Blizzard, through the development of Titan, actually got to the point where they didn't feel that Titan was offering anything unique or innovative enough to actually release it. So that leads me to believe that they found that the mechanics of this were solid enough to the point where they might as well just focus on that instead. Which clearly they did. But let me go ahead and segue off of Overwatch here then, because we've already started talking about it anyway. Titanfall 2's campaign does make me kind of want to see an Overwatch campaign, only because Titanfall 2's campaign was so much goddamn fun. No, Mathis played Titanfall 2. You played the whole campaign too as well, didn't you? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm
with you in that the Titanfall campaign, I think you liked it a lot more than I liked it. I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. There were bits of brilliance in there. There was one level in particular that I fucking adored that ended up obviously only being about an hour long, and I think you know what level I'm talking about.
Yep.
There were bits of brilliance in Titanfall, and there was like parts that I adored, but overall it still came across as very generic Call of Duty-esque, like corridor shooting with really stupid AI. But there was a lot there that I really would love to see expanded in like a coming campaign. The time travel stuff was amazing. The relationship between you and your robot was cool, but didn't get explored as much as I would have liked. There's parts in there that just feel useless as well. Throughout the campaign, you're constantly talking to your robot and making choices on what to say to him, but those choices don't mean jack shit. Like, it doesn't affect anything other than like what his next line is going to be. And I would love to see choice-driven narrative, I guess, in a Titanfall-esque campaign to see how that would go.
Yeah, that was.
I did like it. I didn't hate it at all.
Mm-hmm. That was certainly sort of a shoehorned feature. The fact that you could choose between two seemingly inconsequential choices when you're going through the storyline. That was a little weird, but yeah, like you said, that just the one level that I think a lot of people are familiar with at this point is so much fun, and it's unfortunate that you only get to experience it for that little bit. But at the same time, it does sort of leave you with like this wanting more feeling that I imagine they did on purpose. So perhaps we'll see a little bit more of that in Titanfall 3. But yeah, I thought the single-player campaign was great. Certainly not anything noteworthy storyline-wise. You play a guy named Jack Cooper, for God's sake, so you're really not getting a lot of innovation there. But it's a lot of fun. It's fun to play, and the multiplayer I haven't played a ton of, but what I have played has been a blast. And it's another one of those very mechanically sound games. It's actually just a ton of fun to move around in Titanfall 2. The controls are so good for just running and sliding, bouncing off walls, flying around with your jetpack. It's really well made. And I really should play more of the multiplayer because it was a good time, but it's a front runner for me, honestly. It's really solid.
With the movement being as smooth as it's too bad that they didn't do like a Mirror's Edge time trial style thing where you could just dick around and do parkour and
that'd be cool.
Prearranged area.
They've got the in the campaign they actually have the gauntlet or whatever the hell it's called that you do right at the beginning, and that is sort of like that, although it is of course just like a tutorial segment basically, but it is kind of cool to do that too. Yeah, there you go. There's Titanfall 2 for your consideration.
I'm trying to think of what other games. Like Nick was saying right before the show, like people are saying Dishonored. I think it was Nick that was saying it. Dishonored 2 is like a lot of people's game of the year.
What do you think,
It's
Nick?
hard for me to agree. Like I really loved Dishonored 2, but I don't know if I'd make it my game of the year, or at least AAA game of the year. It was basically more Dishonored 1, and it did everything I wanted in the Dishonored sequel, but I don't know why, but I can't put myself. I just think like there was a lot of Dishonored 2 was brought over from Dishonored 1 in not a good way. So like the gameplay mechanics obviously brought over were great and they improved on the gameplay mechanics, but the story was basically the same story as the first one and there wasn't a lot of change there. I don't know if I'd put Dishonored 2 as like my game of the year. Just random conversation. But anybody else? Nick, you've played Dishonored 2, right?
Yeah, I haven't finished it, though, is the thing. And mostly I brought it up because I was just saying it actually works properly now on PC, which is kind of a big deal.
It's also good.
So now I can probably go back and play more of it. But I really did like what I played of it. That being said, I also don't think it probably would end up my game of the year just because, well, it's kind of like Mathis said, more of Dishonored 1. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. Dishonored 1 was pretty good. And I have to say the combat in this feels really, really nice, so credit where credit's due. They made some good improvements on it, and they kept some of the good stuff, too. I just don't know if it innovates as much as maybe what I would want my game of the year to be, because I do think that there are probably slightly better choices, and I'll touch on those soon enough.
XCOM 2 was this year. I loved XCOM 2.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that one up.
XCOM 2 is going to be slept on.
Yeah.
Even I thought that it came out last December. But I think originally it was planned for last December and it was delayed like 6 weeks until February. But that is like everybody loves Enemy Unknown and Enemy Within. And I feel like XCOM 2, people they don't think it's bad, but they soured on it. I think that's going to change. I think in the long tail, people will come to like that game as much as I feel like it deserves to be liked. It was really just like the bad final mission.
That's what I was going to say. I think people soured on it for the final mission, which was garbage, but 98% of the game was fantastic.
Yeah, so much of it is like really, really good that the final mission being like kind of an enormous misstep is still fine, I think.
And yeah, I agree. Like I can't understate how bad the final level was. Like it was horrible. But if they release an expansion pack that's like a meaty expansion pack, I will dive right back into XCOM 2 happily. Like, I really enjoyed XCOM 2. I know they've released some expansions, but I don't think they're, like, big.
It's predominantly been, there's, like, cosmetic stuff, and then also, there was one that came out maybe, like, 3 months ago.
Okay.
That was a little bit more robust, but it wasn't like Enemy Within levels for sure. Anarchy's Children, I think, was the...
Okay.
Oh, wait, Anarchy's Children was customizations. Reinforcement was DLC packs. that have unique twists to the core game experience. And Alien Hunters, I believe, was
New
also
enemy units, I think.
No, I think it was new
script.
weapons, cosmetic upgrades to soldiers and the Avenger, and an epic new mission.
Yeah, I want like a big expansion pack. I mean, the way it ended, like it teases like Terror from the Deep type stuff.
Yeah,
which I'm excited about. I'm all in. Like, give me an XCOM expansion pack or give me XCOM 3. Like, I'm in. Now that I realize that XCOM 2 was 2016, I really enjoyed it. And a lot of my enjoyment, honestly, the game was great, but I really, really loved playing alongside with you, Ryan.
Yeah.
And everybody else who was playing, because we all got to tell our stories and who died and how missions went. And, like, even adding little things that I loved, like being able to create pre-made characters and insert them into the game. And then
that was cool.
Or some of them become bad guys. Or I think, Nick, early on in my game, your character was like a hard-hitting badass, and then you got kidnapped and having to have like a rescue mission to go save Nick. I think that stuff was super fun, and I love.
Yeah, I agree completely. I personally loved the fact that they added a Shrek mode, that I was able to make my whole team Shreks and have them defend the Earth. Unironically, thought it was a really good game. Actually, though, it's fun to be able to overlay stupid jokes on top of stuff to get your own little personalized tweaks to things. But the game's core mechanics were super fun. I'm not really sure why the perception trailed off so quickly with XCOM 2 compared to 1. Felt like everybody was talking about XCOM 1 for ages, and 2 came out and was just like dead.
Do you feel as though that may just be because there was so much going on this year?
I guess it's possible.
I think maybe it's more along the lines of XCOM. The original reboot of XCOM came at a time where there was that first-person shooter relaunch of XCOM that died and like got a ton of bad press, and everybody's like, not what we want. And then they're like, oh, well, there's another company, 2K, that's giving you what you want. And people were like, yeah, this is what we want. And it came out, and it hits big. It's been so long since we've had a good XCOM game. XCOM 2, I think it was really good, but it just didn't have that hype behind it.
I also feel like I think you're right. And we're also in this era where, you know, now it's not that weird for like an old school game to be very successful. Like Tyranny and Pillars of Eternity, Wasteland 2, like these games are all coming out. There's that new one that I was really interested in that I don't think any of us have played, but that like Japanese Commandos style strategy game that I'm sure someone in chat will say came out of nowhere, and everybody like hardcore old school PC gamers are like, this is one of the best games of the year.
Is it out now?
Yeah, it's like a Japanese sort of XCOM style game.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about because people are asking me to play it. It's that Shadow something fucking or other. I think.
Shogun Shadows the Hedgehog. Something.
Too many games with Shadow in the name, man. Shit.
Shadow Tactics. That's it.
Yeah, people love it.
And so I'm interested in checking that out for sure. But the other thing is that XCOM. I feel like when you look back, like the time for XCOM Enemy Unknown is like truncated into like a single slide that you can look at. But there was really like a peak when it came out where everyone was interested. And then there were a couple like 50-50 DLCs, like where you get introduced to Zhang, and then they're like, you know, we got new helmet colors, and you're like, I don't really know about this. And then Enemy Within came out and was like, this is the definitive experience for this game. So I think we're still waiting for like XCOM 2's Enemy Within, and I hope that it's coming out, although I don't know, like Firaxis is crazy busy. Like, why work on something for XCOM 2 when you could just put like 30 more civs into Civilization and make like $50 million? But I hope that something like that comes out because I do think it's good. My enduring problem with XCOM 2 that doesn't take it from like a 10 to a 6, but takes it to like an 8, you know, a 10 to like a 9 maybe, is that XCOM Enemy Within, on the difficulties above normal, it's extremely defensive focused. And I'm not going to belabor the point because it's very much like inside baseball for people who like those games. Yeah. But it creates cool situations where you're stuck hunkering down for like 5 or 6 turns, and you have to weigh in your head, is it worth taking a low-ish percentage shot when I could also lower my chances of being hit by like 70% by just hunkering down instead? Whereas in XCOM 2, the right decision almost every single time is like, oh, there's an alien that I saw before they saw me. Everybody launch your grenades at that alien immediately and just blow it out of the freaking sky. Mm-hmm. And that, like, it's way, way, way more aggressively focused for sure.
Well, before we continue in the conversation, I'm just going to go ahead and take a nice, big, tasty swig of delicious Madrina's Dark Roast, if you don't mind.
That particular one is quite good, actually.
I specifically ordered 2 6-packs of this of this flavor. It's delicious.
I've been going black. That's what I'm doing.
That's good.
I've got a caramel cafe right now.
You're drinking a different coffee, right, Ryan?
You don't need to draw attention to that during the ad read.
We're sponsored by Madrina's Coffee. You can go to madrinascoffee.com/shop. Use the code ROUNDTABLECOFFEE for 40% off of your purchase. You can also go to madrinascoffee.com/roundtable and enter our giveaway to win free coffee for a year. And it's really, really good. It's all natural, delicious Madrina's Coffee. The ingredients include coffee, milk, sugar.
We're just going down. What's how many calories per can?
But thank you very much to Madrina's. We really appreciate the support, and you can go check it out as well and get yourself some delicious coffee, courtesy of Madrina's.
Something for everybody. If you like the sweet stuff, you like the dark stuff, there's a good balance between them.
Yeah.
I've found that I've enjoyed pretty much every flavor to some extent. Some more than others, but all of them to some extent.
He's good stuff.
Yes, indeed. Firaxis. Let's talk about them again with Civilization 6. I probably am not going to consider this a Game of the Year contender personally, but I do really like it. I think this is one of the best at-launch Civ experiences that I've played, probably to date. You know, like the most complete, wasn't really in need of a major overhaul, which has kind of become the standard, unfortunately, for the Civ releases. But 6 changed quite a bit, too, and that was probably one of the biggest things that surprised me. You got like the districts now. You've got the adjustments to religion, and really every facet of the game was just kind of tweaked and modified. And I like that it was not only changed, but it was kind of made to be a little bit more congruent. You know, like things work well together, and your cities are much better situated when they're working with each other. You know, like you can kind of reap benefits from districts within multiple cities, which was never really something that happened in Civ games before. I really like that.
Yeah, Civ 6 is one of those games where, like, I feel like I'm in the wrong for not liking it more. Like, everyone is like, I'm reading, like, these Game of the Year lists that are coming in from writers and, you know, other personalities in the industry, and Civ 6 is, like, very frequently on these lists. And I'm just kind of like, I like it, like, I have a pleasant time playing it, but for whatever reason, it just didn't have that same kind of, like, compulsion to play that Civ 5 got for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if, you know, I've changed. Like, if I booted up Civ 5, it would probably be the same. I'd probably be like, I don't want to play 100 turns of this right now. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just not at the right spot in our life. In my life, I should say.
For me, I'm in the same boat, but I think I know why I'm the same way, because I can recognize Civ 5 and Civ 6 are great games. Like, and I really was addicted to Civ 5 for a long time. Civ 6 I played, I'm like, yeah, this is good. I did a stream of it. I enjoyed it. But honestly, like, Paradox grand strategy games have altered my taste pretty drastically. Like, when I could play Stellaris and go, Stellaris is a little too simple compared to EU4. I'm like, all right, I think maybe like hundreds of hours in grand strategy Paradox games have altered my tastes in strategy, and I'm looking for something a little bit more complex than what Civ can offer. A lot of the time I was streaming Civ 6, I was like, oh, is it really that simple? Like, that came up a lot. I was like, oh, I thought it would be more complicated. It's not. Okay, moving on.
Do you have like an example of an instance where that happened?
Like, I remember looking at what do you call them? The city states and influencing them. Them, and I thought it would be a little bit more complicated than what it was, but it was really pretty simple of getting
just
the
like
bars.
assign envoys, right?
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I look back and I'm like, man, Stellaris comparatively to Civ 6 is super complicated, but I remember playing Stellaris and going a lot more depth, and you know, I think that's telling of where my taste currently lie as far as strategy games are concerned.
That was a cute little humble brag you managed to squeeze out of there. I'm too smart for Civ 6 now. I can't handle it.
Honestly,
anymore.
like, you play EU4. The problem with EU4 and, like, those types of games is not that they're super complicated. It's that they do a terrible job explaining their mechanics to you.
Yeah.
Once you understand their mechanics, it's not a very difficult game. And Stellaris is even more simple. I think is a great entry point for that style of game. But yeah, I would disagree to say EU4 and stuff like they're complicated, but they're not as complicated as they seem, just because of the way that they open.
Indeed.
I feel like my preference is actually like almost like EU4 is like my dad, and then I've grown into adulthood, and I'm like, I want to do anything but what my dad did. I spent so much time playing EU4 that now, and CK2, that for strategy games, I want it like pared down, like so simple and like so minimalistic and so elegant. Something like Rimmed Capsule or Kingdom or something like that. And when it like Civilization, when I look at it, I'm like, there's just too many moving parts. Like if I have to do like 8 things per turn, and I got to be like, oh, Washington is my military city, so let's make sure I understand like the reasoning for why that is compelling for a lot of people, but I just at this point, for me, with my preferences right now, I'm like, it feels like a lot of busy work when really like I have like one aim that I want to accomplish. I would like to be able to streamline, like cut the fat, basically.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, you can play multiplayer and never be able to do anything until the turn changes over.
Oh, good lord, I can't imagine.
Because Invicta attacks you with his tanks for having spearmen at your border, despite the fact that it's also your border.
You were looking at him funny,
Check
man.
the wire.
How does like playing a Civ game with like 6 fucking people work? I feel like it would take forever.
So the first time we played with 5 people. It was me, Sin, Rob, Dan, and Austin. And it actually went fairly well because we were doing simultaneous turn order. But the thing with that is it does create sort of a disadvantage to those who have a worse connection when you're in wars, because it's just who can click first, right? So
weird.
Yeah, so that kind of fucks things up. But if you do dynamic turn order during wars, it's a lot worse, because that's what we did with the 6 of us, and it takes probably like 10 minutes to do 2 turns, which is totally absurd. So yeah, it gets to the point where you're like waiting for 80% of the time, and then you do your actions, and you're just sending the turns off again.
Where, like, again, I look to EU4 and the way they do, like, they don't do turns, they just do time ticks by at a certain speed.
Mm-hmm.
And when things happen, you can just slow it down or you can pause it. And that works really good in multiplayer. When you have 4 or 5 people playing and shit goes down, you can be like, everything's still going, you can just slow it down. So people can still, who are not in war, can do their thing, and people who are in war can do proper planning.
That would be really interesting, like a real-time variant of Civ. But that just kind of... Yeah, I was just going to say, that's just EU4, I guess, but...
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. There's Civ 6. Anybody want to bring one to the table?
We can talk about Deus Ex Mankind Divided a little bit if you want.
Sure.
I never beat it.
Sure.
I don't know if anybody beat it.
Did
anybody here play it?
No. Is it Game of the Year worthy? I played like 30 minutes and really didn't
I never
feel like
beat
going
it. If I'm
further.
the only one that played it, then there's no conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what I've read is like, it's really good up until the end where it ends abruptly. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right, well, we'll not talk about that right now.
Yeah.
You can talk about Hitman.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hitman is, I would say, like a possible #1 Game of the Year candidate, actually.
It's crazy.
Like, it's...
Did you play the Christmas update, by the way?
Not yet,
Okay.
because I have to figure out what I'm going to do on Sunday. Because I keep saying, like, okay, that was the last Hitman stream. And then they're like, we're going to come out with, like, a new mission that there's, like, 40 different ways to beat. And
it's
I'm like,
the fucking
okay.
Home Alone mission, isn't it, man? Oh, that's so good.
It is. It is. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll start with that on Sunday and we'll, like, transition to something else. But Hitman is, like, it is a stealth AAA roguelite. And I think that nobody who hasn't played it understands that at all, which is, I mean, it's not sad. It just is what it is. But people are like, well, it's only 6 missions in this freaking game. Like, there's infinite missions in the game, and they're all really, really good and have moving parts, which is awesome. But, like, I finished all the story missions, and some of them I did badly, which is fine. But then, like, last week, there was a new challenge that had, like, all these sniper challenges that you could do. So it was, like, 5 challenges. Kill 2 targets with the same bullet. Kill 10 people with a sniper. Kill 10 targets with a sniper rifle. I forget the other ones. But anyway, it ended up in this situation where, like, I had the shittiest sniper rifle and could not get it to penetrate 2 people's heads simultaneously. So you have to come up with these creative ways to solve these problems. So I was like, okay, let's do this mission. And I knocked 2 targets out with like a brick and then dragged them into the bathroom, closed the door behind me, and just lined up their heads and then put the sniper rifle like right up against their head. And like tried to get the multi-kill, shoot the first guy, he dies, the bullet does not go through to the other guy. So you go, okay. I leave the room, like the mass grave, and go out and find another target, brick him over the head, drag him into the room with the corpse and the other dude who's just knocked out. And then I'm like, okay, well, it just says kill 2 people with the same shot. So then I took a fire extinguisher and placed it on all of their bodies and then shot it and ran away, and it makes a huge explosion in like 5 seconds after you shoot it. They both died, doesn't count. So there's 2 targets left on the mission. So I go in, I knock 2 more people out with bricks, drag them into the horrifying, death chamber, and then I'm like, well, it's a sniper challenge, but it just says kill 2 people with 1 shot. So I get their heads on top of one another, and I take out the shotgun, and it kills both of them in 1 shot, but doesn't count for the challenge.
What the hell?
Like, it tried like 20 different things to get this to work, but what it really does is kind of highlight these like cool bonus objectives that you can get going on in Hitman, and then it's really not just like go into the mission, find any way you can to shoot this. Like the way I played Absolution was like, hey, there's the target, shoot him in the head, then run to the bathroom and change into a janitor's outfit and just run to the exit. This is like way more, there's a lot more like emergent gameplay than in Absolution. There's a lot more creativity and improvisation than in Absolution, and there's a ton more replay value, like between user-created contracts and elusive targets, which are basically like weekly challenge, sort of, that you only get 1 shot at, and if you die, then you're done. Escalations, which are like 5-part missions that get harder and harder every single time, et cetera, et cetera. That game is really good, and I'm so stoked that it got enough of a positive reception to start like Season 2, which should be coming next year.
That story you just told about the multi-kill reminded me a lot of Scribblenauts. It sounded like everything you were trying to do undermined the way the game was designed. That didn't frustrate you more than you found it enjoyable?
In the end, it's just like an arbitrary like checkbox in the game. So the experience that I had was really fun, and I didn't unlock the sweet sniper rifle for accomplishing it, but not really a big deal to me.
It's just that if the exploding the fire extinguisher story was the end, like that was the answer, that would have been actually really fun.
Yeah.
But since it wasn't, it's like, ugh.
And I can sit here, I respect, and I've said this before, like, I respect Hitman for what it does, and I'm glad it was super, super good. I just wish I enjoyed it more. But, like, I understand how, like, I can see people seeing it's a step above Absolution. I would say Absolution is a step down from Blood Money, but I still really enjoyed it. And then for me, the contracts and this episodic thing was a step, from personal taste, was a step down.
I've gotten on
I also
record.
think like it takes like a little bit to learn the language of the game and kind of understand, because like the first few missions, you're like, there's no tolerance for failure. Like if I get spotted, that's it. Like I got to restart. And if you really want to get like Stealth Assassin or something, Silent Assassin, sorry, then you do need to do that. But if you're just trying to like do the mission in a way that is cool without necessarily being perfect, there is a lot of leeway for like, okay, I got spotted, quickly run into the bathroom, like hit this guy in the face with a lead pipe, take his outfit, hide him in the closet, run out of the other bathroom door, and then just like keep doing what I'm doing. And that's really where it gets fun, I think.
I've been really pro Hitman all year.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been really pro Hitman all year. I've been a fan of every level I've played. I'm really a big fan of the level design overall. I think it's probably one of the strongest points of the game. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of people that are all doing their own things. It feels very lifelike. It feels like you were just dropped into this thing that was happening absent of you, which is always, one of the better ways I feel to engross you in the situation and allow you to feel a lot more impact and a lot more personal connection to what you're doing, which is really fun for a Hitman game. And I've had a lot of fun just like wandering around the levels that I've played and just checking out all the stuff that's going on because they feel really lifelike. It's cool. Like
Paris, Sapienza, and Hokkaido are like really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
The other map, like Marrakesh, I don't really like. I don't know which. I know Mathis played Paris,
First two.
Paris and Sapienza, I think. Like, those are excellent.
Sapienza
like,
is fucking amazing. I love it.
Those are classic game maps, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Hokkaido is pretty good. Colorado, there's some cool stuff that goes on in the map. You can, like, you have to kill Jason, which is pretty
that's neat.
nice. I really like the Thailand map as well, Bangkok. But, I think Hitman's a little slept on. But I don't think it's going to be for long. I think with Season 2, like, they had a huge uphill battle. Even us, like, we trashed it, sort of. Like, the episodic model. We're like, oh, why don't you just...
What are you talking about? I was trying to sing its praises all year, man.
Maybe the rest of us trashed it.
Yeah.
But we were like, why don't they just come out with the game all at once? Like, this seems like a way to, milk customers for all they're worth and blah, blah, blah. And what they've actually done has been very positive. They've released a lot of free content that has really not just extended the lifespan of the game, but also widened the appeal as you're playing it. Like, instead of just releasing more missions, there's more things to do on the missions that are already out that make it, like, very, very replayable. But I'm belaboring the point right now. I like Hitman a lot. It really surprised me. One of this year's biggest surprises for me. And I'm looking forward to Season 2.
Hell yeah. Nick or Mathis, you want to bring one to the table real quick? Nick, I figured there was one that you were almost guaranteed to talk about, right?
Yeah, I mean, all three of my ones haven't been mentioned, but for the sake of chat, because I know they want to talk about this one, I'm sure we should probably bring up Dark Souls 3 at some point.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, I think we all, to some extent, thought it was a pretty solid game, right?
I did not play it.
It was like trash.
I didn't play it, but I am not the Dark Souls guy, so that's to be expected, I think.
Well, I mean, I was surprised by, number one, the overall just graphical fidelity of the game was just absolutely beautiful. The environments were very, very dense with stuff going on. It sort of took a little bit more inspiration, I thought, from 1 than 2, which is what I wanted to see out of it personally, but I know that's a little contentious maybe to say. It had its ups and downs. I didn't think it was the best one in the series or anything, and towards the end I felt like it struggled a little bit, but overall I think it was definitely one of the better, maybe the top 2 after Dark Souls. I guess it comes down to whether or not you liked Bloodborne or Dark Souls 2 more. Or Demon Souls, I guess. That's with all the other ones. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid finale. If there's not going to be any more Dark Souls ever, then I guess this was an all right way to go out. Could have been better. Could have been a lot worse, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you, but I'm with you in that. Better. I think Dark Souls. It's impossible to replace Dark Souls 1 as like your favorite because it was most people's introduction to that type of game. I really, really enjoyed all the lore of Dark Souls 3. Like, I went out of my way to just get as much of the story on my run as I could, and all the ties into Dark Souls 1, and like obvious ties in certain levels, and then more obscure ties with like some references and stuff. Some of the secrets were really good. Some of the boss fights were amazing. A couple of the boss fights were garbage because the camera is still terrible in that game. But I really loved it. Like, the Nameless King fight was hard, not because the boss is that difficult, but because the boss is so big, the camera doesn't know what to do a lot of the time. And like that aspect of the fight pissed me off. But once you could get him down to like your size, it was a lot easier. I loved it though. I think Dark Souls 3 was great.
I mean, I really like it too, but the negative that I have is like, I wish I hadn't played it through as a pyromancer because the game is just not. It's the classic like Dark Souls thing where, if you play it through sword and board, you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then someone's like, well, I tried to be a sorcerer and it's really hard. And you're like, oh, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? Don't just take a sword and a shield. That's how you play Dark Souls and have fun. Oh, well, I want to be a bandit. No, it's your first time through the game. You can't be a bandit. And be a knight, be a warrior, and you're good. Like, being as a pyromancer and like crowdsourcing help because I was like, hey, I'd really like to use this pyromancy flame to fight one of the first 12 bosses, but there's no good spells. And people are like, oh yeah, that's just how Dark Souls 3 is. Eventually you get amazing spells that will like make your life a lot easier, but up until that point, like it was frustrating. But it's just like one of the quirks of Souls, and it's one of the reasons that I actually like the games as much as I do is there's weird stuff like that gives it character, even though it's not super smooth.
I always found that super weird about just a Souls game in general. Like, you could stumble across something that'll make the whole game super easy, like I did. In Dark Souls 3, I was doing one of the secret storylines that gives you one of the most powerful fucking blades in the game, and it's the Morian blade, and that thing is, like, if you get that, you're going to have a hard time losing fights, because that, especially if you upgrade it all the way, it's an incredible blade. But they're also, like, one of the starting classes is, like, you're going to get shit on for half the game because you decided that's what you wanted to play. And I always found that weird about Dark Souls. Like, why give the option to start as a pyromancer, for instance, in Dark Souls 3, when that class doesn't become viable until 50% of the way through the game?
Yeah.
It just felt poorly balanced, honestly.
Yeah.
And that goes for a number of the areas of the game. I felt like they over-relied a little bit too much on enemies having infinite stamina at times, which is, it's what made some of the bosses too frustrating, in my opinion. I also felt the game was maybe a little shorter than I would have liked, but I don't know if everybody agrees on that.
What was it? Say it again?
That the game was a little too short, in my opinion. I felt like it was over by the time it was starting to get good.
I don't remember. How many hours did I put into it?
It might not even be just down to hours, but like I explored everything quite meticulously, and I felt like there wasn't enough reward necessarily for all the exploration. You kind of found a lot of dead ends that didn't really go to much. There was some couple of big areas though, which were cool.
Was that like? I wonder if maybe you had the expectation from previous Souls games that there would be a whole bunch of really, cryptic hidden shit. But
I did, and also I was hoping they would try and top one for how cryptic and obscure some of the areas were.
Yeah. Didn't quite meet that mark, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when you go in with high expectations, pretty much always what happens. It's not even their fault. It was just something that I was hoping for.
I can talk about that real quick for one of the ones I was sure was going to be a nominee for Game of the Year.
Oh,
I wonder what it is.
High expectations brought
No
down
Man's
to a
Sky?
screeching halt. I just want to mention Last Guardian real quick because I've gotten a lot of feedback about my playthrough, and I've been actually still like obsessing over it because this game is attached to my ego now, and there's no separating it. But I think I don't want to say this because I am ceding defeat here, but I think I may have been a little too harsh on it. I think that had I maybe broken up my last half of the game into shorter segments, I probably would have had a much better time with it. It doesn't really speak very highly of the game when I have to say that, but I think a lot of the frustrations I had were built around the fact that I was not really like looking to study more of the game and find out what else it had to offer. I was just getting through to the end at that point, like when I was like 10, 11 hours in, I was just like, fuck this. I don't want to deal with this dog bird anymore. I just want to get through this hell and be done with it. But I don't know. I feel I probably should have exercised a little bit more patience in retrospect. At the same time, though, it did definitely still have its share of issues that really bogged it down, that made it a lot harder to recommend than I expected. However, it is still gorgeous. It's one of the most well-animated and cinematically impressive games I've ever played, and the character is amazing. Trico is just, he's adorable, totally reminds me of my own dog. I think a lot of people have had that connection with him. It's got a lot of value, but it can't be my Game of the Year. I've seen people giving it Game of the Year, too, but I cannot.
I can't begin to relate to what they're thinking when they get to that.
Yeah.
I hate that argument that you use. Like, maybe I should have broken it up. That's not your fucking fault. I hate that.
Yeah. The game exists to sell you on itself. You shouldn't have to come up with justifications to like it more. I think the one thing it does really well, more than maybe any other game that I can think of, is the sense of scale in it.
Yes.
Yep.
When you walk outside for the first time, you look up and you see there's like 1,000 trellises over you, all with like physics-enabled shit hanging off of them. Mm-hmm. That's really impressive.
And then you look at the frame rate and go,
and then you realize you're watching a slideshow of the game. You got a little bit taken out of it.
Here's a real fucking weird thing I heard today. Apparently, the rest mode in the PS4 fucks with the Last Guardian's performance. So if you restart the system, like full hard reset the system every time you want to play, it performs much better, which is fucking stupid.
Weird.
Yeah. But that's some advice for those of you that maybe haven't gone through your first playthrough yet.
Well, it's not like games when they go through certification get put through the ringer to test for stuff like that. So, I mean, you can really see how something like that would slip through the cracks.
Especially after all these years.
What true gamer would ever step away from his PlayStation 4 for more than 30 minutes at a time? Like, it's just, you got hardcore fragging to do.
Yeah. Especially in The Last Guardian.
Frag on.
Oh, man.
I was trying to play it again last night, and I got to a point where it was like, I'm just stuck in this hole, and I don't know what to do. And the dog does not want to help, and the dog is not interested in doing anything, except occasionally he'll jump up in the air once.
That's the thing I have to get on people's case about that I've heard more than a few times directed at me. No, the answer is not to just let the dog figure it out, okay? He won't. That's not what he's specialized
Especially
at,
if there
is
are barrels
progression.
around to play with and he can't get them.
Yeah.
Like, I brought this stuff up to Morag, and he was like, oh, you just got to use the dog controls. And then I was basically just standing on his back, holding R1 and hitting every button. And none of them did anything.
See, but that's the problem, Nick. You gotta be more patient. You gotta wait until you get the right command, and you have no idea how, because there's no visual prompt to tell you when you did it right, and there's also no directions. And while they tutorialize the jump through the entire game, for some reason they never feel it appropriate to describe to you how to use Trico. It's silly. It's real silly. I wish I liked it more.
It's got great potential.
Yes.
And when they remake it in 5 years, maybe it'll be fantastic then.
I think I'm going to try it again. I think I'm going to give it a few months and then come back to it and give it another whirl, but it's not my game of the year. I'm sorry.
It's very pretty.
Yes.
Yes.
It is
I don't think anyone will argue that
No,
point.
we're not going to take that away from anyone. It is a beautiful game. All right. Let's see here.
What else you got, Nick? Yeah, I said you had 3.
Yeah, you had a couple more you want to bring to the table.
Okay,
right?
yeah, well, probably the one that I'm going to go with for legit, my actual nomination is, I think Planet Coaster is.
I was actually going to ask, yeah.
I've not seen a game with quite this level of depth that takes post-game support so seriously and has so much going on as far as just creativity and potential. I could easily see playing this for 5 years and looking back and going, man, there's still so much more I could do.
That's
It's
awesome.
just, it really hit that button of like, this is a game I wish existed my whole childhood, and now I get to have that, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the usual feeling you get of like excitement to, open up a thing and you go, oh, this is what's in front of me. Usually that wears off the third or fourth time you open the game. I still feel it. When I look at it, I'm like, man, I could do anything. I literally make anything I want. Plus, it's just got a million game modes. There's all this other stuff you can do on top of just making parks. I imagine eventually people are just going to start making stuff that's completely tangential to the point of the game. Maybe it's already happened. But I was thinking about, what if you just made like a roller coaster that takes 2 hours to go through? That's the size of the entire park.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do that. That sounds awesome.
That does sound good, actually.
I think, Planet Coaster is a really, really good game. That its principal problem right now is that if you get to a park that passes a certain size, the game just becomes a slideshow.
Right.
Like, they incentivize putting down a lot of... basically, every time you put down a roller coaster, you want to add elements to the queue so that people are happy to wait in line for it. And then, so you get, moving parts a lot of the time, explosions, stuff like that. All that stuff creates, this huge load. And then every visitor to the park being modeled independently, and even if they move as a family, they have independent thoughts and desires of where to go. Every time every one of those every one of those people walks by a queue, it runs a check to see if that person's actually going to get on the roller coaster, and it just starts to get unbelievably framey.
Yeah.
So by the time I hit 5,000 visitors in my first park, it was not a pleasant experience to play.
Yeah, no.
Then when I restarted, I was like, oh, right, this game's amazing. But I can already the cycle happening, the park's doing really well, and we're going to get to the point where there's a lot of visitors, and there's no escape from the game running really, really badly when you get to that point, unfortunately. So, I mean, that's the principal bummer for me, is that in contrast to something like RimWorld continues to be playable despite the size of your colony, basically.
Yeah.
So, 100 hours into one colony, it's still the same like quality of experience. Whereas at Planet Coaster, if you cross a certain threshold, it's just like it's not as pleasant of an experience.
Right. And I can't disagree with you. The game does run pretty badly once you get up into the upper echelons of what's going on in your park. I will say, though, that ultimately I think it's a problem that's only going to get less severe the longer the game's out. They've been patching it steadily. They have committed to lots of post-game support in the form of additional content, which means they have to be aware of the fact that you're going to push the poly limit. Plus, down the road, our computers are just going to get more powerful. So if it's just a matter of literally just like brute forcing it, maybe that'll be the solution as well. But the game actually has the potential to go the distance that I might actually care that it runs really well in 5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not as dismayed by it as Ryan is, but I totally understand why it's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I'll clarify my statement on the game by saying I really like the game. I think it's great. I think it's a really good game. I have two issues with it. One is the frame rate issue that we've just discussed. And I think it's a really good game. My second gripe is I think it's a really good game that lacks the game aspect, in that once you are rich, and it does not take long, there is the point of running the challenge mode is gone. The only thing money exists for, or the only thing that mode exists for, is to just trickle in the different rides and trickle into different research. At that point, you might as well be playing creative mode and have everything unlocked, because there's no point in playing challenge mode once you get to a certain point. Like there was a point in time I was playing and I was like, I was at like $5,000 and I was like doing some side stuff. I look back and I'm like at 10 grand. And you have so much money that you just have to dump it as fast as you can because you have so much. The game aspect, the management aspect is incredibly weak in my opinion. I don't think it's very strong. I think it's there because they feel like they need to have it there. But there does come a point where I'm like, well, the only reason I'm playing this is so that I can restrict the amount of rides I can use until I unlock them, and that's it.
What would you want them to do, though, to make that a more interesting challenge? Because, like, if you think about it logically, in real life, you would eventually reach a tipping point where you would have so much money that you wouldn't care.
I just wanted to maintain a challenge for longer than 2 hours, I guess. Like, it does come to a point where, again, I say, like, I just don't think it was worth playing challenge mode. You might as well just play creative mode.
Okay.
There's just nothing. Sure. I don't know what the answer is. Like, I can't tell you because I don't know. But I play other management games, and that aspect in other management games of just, trying to maintain a level of difficulty holds longer than it did in Planet Coaster. I'm not playing on easy difficulty either. The only difference between like medium and hard is that hard you can't take out any loans, and I only ever and you start with a way smaller amount of money. So you start with $2,000, you can't take out any loans. It means you put down one ride and then you sit there for like 2 hours and wait.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. And in the medium difficulty, I only ever took out loans in the very beginning. Once they were paid off, I never had to touch loans again.
I also feel like people give it's the same exact problem I had with the reception to City Skylines. Another game that I think is quite good, but not perfect. And that's that they don't give it enough shit for abstractions that it makes, and they just go, oh, that's just like people behave the way that people would behave in real life. Like, it reaches the point where you can't bring common sense to the management aspect of the game because no people in the real world go to a park that's free and then spend like $35 on each roller coaster and then leave. Like it's something that does not really make sense in the real world, and it creates this kind of weird abstraction where you're like, oh, you have to just design your park in like a logical way. The whole thing is like illogical to begin with. At least I don't know. I've never been to a theme park that was like, we're gonna make it free, and then if you want to go on the log flume, it's $40 for a 60-second ride.
You've never been to those like just touring carnivals that have like the ticket system for rides?
But it's not $30 a roller coaster.
Yeah, but still,
it's like $5 a roller coaster.
Yeah,
and like
I still charge people. Like I'm like, you can still charge people to enter the park and charge ridiculous prices for rides, and they'll still pay.
I don't know. I feel like that's all balancing stuff that could get ironed out later if they cared to. There's going to be game abstractions everywhere. I mean, Hitman had a ton of them too. I don't really know how you get around it. You'd have to start modeling like people's thoughts beyond what they do in the park and what their jobs are outside of that. Like, it gets a little crazy. Eventually, you got to draw a line, right?
I don't understand.
Like there's weird decisions in that game that took me a while to wrap my head around. One of them is the idea that every in-game day is a day, but it's also a month. And then
that is odd, yeah.
Another one is that it's $30 to ride a roller coaster, but your janitors make $150 per month by default. And you're like, I'm trying to figure out, like, in my head, like, how this works. Like, someone that maybe I'm getting too into the ludonarrative dissonance, you know, this sort of thing. But, like, I'm like, people that come to this park, if I'm running the math right, they must be making like $30 million a year. And then they want the janitors to make $150 a month? That's like, what kind of dystopia are we living in that these 24-hour round-the-clock janitors are making like peanuts? They make enough to ride the roller coaster like 4 times a month.
That's modern-day America, motherfucker. Welcome to capitalism.
They love their job. Just check their thoughts. They fucking love picking up puke.
It's not even part-time work. They're there 24/7.
They don't get to sleep, man. Yeah.
They never leave. But yeah, I agree with you. You can't like apply real world logic to the game. I make it more difficult. Make the guests be more stingy on what they'll spend their money on. Something to make it more challenging in the long run. Because by episode 6, I was rich.
But if you think about what that means in the long term, though, like, how do you then communicate to the player? How do you make a proper roller coaster that picky people would want to go on when you have no real metrics to base it on? Because, like, isn't the point of the game to have fun and make a roller coaster you want to make?
Well, you can. I think, like, yeah, and that's what creative mode's for, though, right? Like, you go and you make those roller coasters.
I guess.
Like, but in career mode, that's when I would like to pop open my statistics. Say, what are my most common visitors? Families. They're easily the most prominent people visiting my park. All right, I'm going to make a roller coaster that is not nauseous, not fear. It's very family friendly, and my park is going to be a family friendly park, and that is like the theme I'm going to go for. And you work those metrics, and then you put out ads for families, even though you get less teenagers. Like that kind of thing, I think would be a lot of fun. But right now, it's like I don't care who shows up in my park. I'm making fucking bank.
I'd love to see your version of it too. I just don't know if it's quite to that point where you can emulate all that stuff yet. Like, we'd have to get into serious, like, demographic statistics and all kinds of stuff that's beyond the scope of the game. And maybe one day they will do something like that, but until then, I guess.
Again, I say I really do enjoy the game. It is a good game. I just have a couple of gripes with it. It's not perfect, but no game is.
Except yeah, there you go. So I figured there was one more that just had to make your list, Nick, and I'm willing to bet you can guess what that is.
Shadow the Witness Warrior 2.
Oh, okay, 2 more, yeah. There you go. Definitely 2 more now that I think about it.
All right, so I guess I'll talk about Shadow Warrior. It is a fantastic FPS that almost everyone I talk to seems to hate the loot system of, but for whatever reason I think is one of the more redeeming qualities of it. I'm not really sure I understand the outer perspective, actually, of why people are not as into it as I am. It feels like exactly the Borderlands-y kind of game that I've been waiting for that doesn't have to do with Borderlands. Granted, as always needs to be said, Lo Wang's kind of a dick. Can't really love the game for the story so much, but it's really the mechanics. Feels fantastic to fire the guns in that. There's tons and tons of content. You can play it co-op. Generally seems to work now. The loot system and the fact that they're adding more New Game Plus and post-game content means there's a lot of content to see. The game's beautiful graphically, has really nice animations, has a system where when you cut stuff up with a katana, as you cut it, it cleaves across those lines and their limbs will fall off where you cut them.
Yep.
Very few games actually model that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the fact that you can augment your weapons pretty much any way you want to play the game a little bit in your own style, I think it's great too. I'm very, very pro Shadow Warrior 2, and I hope that if they make a third one, they go very much in the same exact direction. Simply just open up options even more for weaponry.
I had a damn fun time with it, not only playing it at PAX, but also the little bit that I played with you and Rob, I think it was. Just a good fucking time, man. It's just another one of those games, much like Titanfall 2, is just like really satisfying to move around and cut stuff up and actually play the game.
The mobility is fantastic. I didn't even mention that. It's like kind of like Titanfall, actually.
Yeah. You
can basically dash infinitely and double jump all the time. So wherever you want to go, you can just go there. And they don't mess around with like making you unlock that shit. It's just there.
Yep. Yeah, that was one of the big gripes people had with the first one, is that you had to go for quite a while before you actually felt like a badass ninja guy. But with Shadow Warrior 2, they recognized that people just immediately want to get that feeling, and they very much did that. So kudos to them. Yeah, so that's Shadow Warrior 2. Anybody got something else before they want to hit the witness real quick? I think that was it for me. I do want to give a nod to Darkest Dungeon. Came out of early access this year. Still one of my favorite games of the past few years. Just brutally difficult, but I'm still playing it like daily, and I'm still having a blast. Really, really good.
Rim Worlds, although it's not like out, is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And like probably one of the most fun experiences I had this year with the game for sure.
Early access done right, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely true.
Doom, people are saying, was great.
Doom,
I
yeah,
played
yeah.
it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was very good. I still think, though, it falls into that, like, has a lot of potential but still has some rough edges. It's definitely one of the better, like, reiterations of an older concept that's been done in recent memory. Again, my gripes were not so much with the mobility or the weapons or anything. Those were all great. But it was more with the level design and the fact that it got very, very much like an arena fighter, basically, towards the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much about exploring the levels as you go into a room and you fight 25 of the same enemy for a while. Then they let you go and do another room, and then you do it again. Most people don't seem to mind that. And in the scheme of things, it's not the biggest deal, but I really enjoyed the graphics so much that I wanted to explore more and actually look around. And when you limit it, it just becomes strictly about the mechanics, which are fun mechanics. Just they can play down a little bit after there's very little player autonomy. You're really just running and shooting and running and shooting. And for some, maybe that's exactly what you want.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it, but Nick Robinson was actually streaming for a little while Doom Without the HUD, which was gorgeous. I was watching a few minutes. It's beautiful. It's really cool.
Yeah, and when I say that, it's almost it's a compliment because the game is so beautiful. I want to look at it more instead of constantly having to do stuff that takes away from the environments. So
gotcha.
Yeah, they did a really good job with it, and I hope they make another one, and I hope it's great.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to give a nod. We'll probably talk about it more in the indie review show next week, but Inside really is like a low-key Game of the Year candidate for me. It was just, I was blown away by it. I thought that it was, just like, it was Limbo, but made better, which is very surprising to me that they could do that. And they certainly have a couple of issues too, namely, like, the narrative is very confusing, and the actual presentation is interesting at points. But the just the art direction, the sound design, the story, I like the story personally. Like I know that's kind of a divisive point, but I really like the way that they conveyed things, even though it is really bizarre. And I was just really captivated by it the entire time. It was great. I loved Inside.
Inside would be like top 5 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Unless like 3 really awesome games come out in the next 15 days.
Gotcha.
I also think that Enter the Gungeon is like, it's a victim of being a game that is so good but not great that all a lot of people can see is the gulf that separates it from being like Isaac level play forever. Like, I think that it's actually like a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 game, but all people can see is the difference between Gungeon and like why it's not Isaac. Like, the story has just become like, why can't I play this game for 1,000 hours instead of like, man, this game is good enough that I put like 100 or 200 hours into it. So I think that game is being written down to some extent unfairly, and that would be top 5 for me for sure from this year as well.
How many do you have in and out of curiosity?
Like 150 something. 159.
Nice.
I will put also up there for me is Stardew Valley. I fucking love that game. I'm still playing it. Really, really good. And one game I have to put out there, I think it's worth at least noting because it tapped into something we all really want, but the game is fucking broken and will always be broken. The developers clearly don't ever want to fix it, is Dead by Daylight. I think Dead by Daylight was on it. Oh, yeah, if you're talking about No Man's Sky, I'm not even going to bother.
I think Dead by Daylight is like actually bad.
It is bad. It's awful. But it provides a type of gameplay that we all really want. Like, it's a really good idea. And we're looking at Friday the 15th beta coming out this weekend for closed beta. So I'm excited to dip into that and try it. I don't think I'm allowed to stream it, though. And then the weekend after is going to be like a 4-day open beta where people can play it and record it and stuff. I'm very excited for that because I'm hoping it's going to be what Dead by Daylight was supposed to be.
I can embrace how broken that game is.
Oh, yeah.
I personally just enjoy broken games unironically sometimes because it's funny. It adds this meta level of hilarity to something that is very serious.
Yeah, as long as we can still, play it semi-reliably, right?
Well, yeah, it sucks when we're trying to actually put on a show and we just can't stay connected to it. And that's the same with Gang Beasts. I would totally say if Gang Beasts worked flawlessly and it had more content, I'd probably play it like every other day on the stream. But unfortunately, no, we can't have that.
Not to make this like a Gang Beasts show, Gang Beasts needs, like, in my opinion at least, I don't know, it needs to kill you faster. Because, like, I really enjoy playing it, like, once a week, once every 2 weeks. But at the end of, like, an hour, especially if we get stuck on, like, the subway map forever, I feel like I'm just waiting for people to throw themselves onto the train a lot. Like, I really like trucks, and I really like painter map. But then a lot of the other time, I feel like we maybe just spend like 45 minutes going like, and then like we find a little seam and we rip it open and then we like iterate on that to the point of absurdity and then it's over and it's good. But like I see some comments on the videos and on the streams and I'm starting to agree with them where I'm like, the comments are saying like, I don't really understand what I'm watching. Like it just feels like what you're doing is not necessarily 100% consequential with what's happening on the screen.
No, I'm kind of with you there, yeah.
We are like it's overtly silly in a way that's funny, but it has to keep bringing like more to the table. Otherwise, you're like, okay, I've seen that dude get donkey kicked like 20 times. So
yeah.
I think might just be down to the witness now, yeah.
Ultimate Chicken Horse as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
That game is
was that this year? I thought that was last year.
It was out of early access this year.
Okay.
I think. Either way, I'm going to go with it.
Sure.
Ultimate Chicken Horse is a novel concept that mostly works online and is thus really fun.
It mostly works. It's like a lot of like caveats for our games.
Yeah.
Like, it mostly works.
I mean, that's
totally
been
broken.
indie games, right? Like, they've seeming to progressively get more broken as the years go by. It's a fun game, though. I agree. I didn't love it at first, and then it kind of grew on me over time. I do wish there were more levels, though, still. And I hope they add more content to it, because we've got like 80 hours.
I was going to say, you guys have poured quite a bit of time. I think it's got a good amount of
over
levels.
and over the top for what probably they expected people to get out of it, perhaps.
I think it's got a solid variety, to be honest. Yeah, you want to talk about The Witness too?
Yeah, it's a puzzle game. it's a very unique puzzle game with a Myst-like quality to it, a lot of wonderment, and teaches you a language of puzzles throughout. It's graphically stunning, and well, I've gone on about this game pretty much the entire year. So if you haven't heard me talk about it, it is one of the games that I was the most engrossed by and couldn't stop streaming it. I did like a 20-hour stream once where I just didn't want to stop. Because I was enjoying being in that space so much. The ambience of it was just stunning to me, and learning what was going on, trying to understand like what's the point of why I'm here. Why am I this man stuck on this island who can do nothing but solve puzzles? That core mystery and the way it was presented was very engaging and engrossing to me on a deep level for some reason. And sometimes there's just those little like under the surface things that pull at you that you can't quite describe in words that keep you coming back, and The Witness did that to me. It just had something mysterious about it that really got my attention. So I would be remiss if I didn't say it was one of my favorite games of the year. I do agree that the plot of it ultimately felt a bit unfulfilling, but it was one of those games where really the journey was more than the destination. So I didn't really hold that against it much. Really, the whole meat of the game was learning the language of the puzzles and completionism, trying to unlock as much of it as possible.
Awesome. All right, well, there's probably a few that we forgot, but in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the conversation there. Let's make our choices, I guess. It's the moment of truth, right? Let's see it. I'll start. I'll come out of the gates here. I'm gonna give it to Overwatch. Overwatch, I had so much fun playing this year. I distinctly remember the feeling when we were all so into it for the first week. It was great, man. Like we don't get that very often just amongst the group of us. A game that we all really connect with and can have a bunch of fun with for a long time. And Overwatch absolutely provided that. And they've been giving it a lot of great balancing updates. They've obviously provided the what am I trying to think of? Like the timed events, I guess. You know, like the Summer Olympics. You got the Halloween, the Christmas stuff now. So it's been cool to see them continually support it, obviously. And why wouldn't they? They've made billions of dollars off of it. And it's so much fun, man. I still can boot up Overwatch and just have a blast playing. So I think I got to give it to Overwatch.
I either would give it to Stardew Valley for me personally or XCOM 2, and I'm leaning towards XCOM 2. XCOM 2 gave me that same style of like playing it when all of you guys are playing it in our different stories, and that kind of community aspect. Like you say, it doesn't come around too often where the group of us are all playing something and we can all talk to each other and just geek out about it and talk about what happened with us and just playing together. Yeah, I think I will probably lean to give it to XCOM 2. I just forget how much fun, because it feels like it came out over a year ago, but it was such a good time.
Mm-hmm. I won't pass the buck, man. Anybody who wants to take the lead here, feel free.
All right. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but definitely got to give it to the Resident Evil 7 demo. No, Planet Coaster, man. That's going to be
Planet
my
Coaster,
pick.
okay. I thought it would be Shadow Warrior 2.
A
little surprised.
Only reason it isn't Shadow Warrior 2, honestly, is just because I don't know if their plan for post-game support is as ambitious as Planet Coaster. I don't think it's going to have as long legs, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I do hope they go back into it, though, and do a lot more. I haven't seen the groundwork yet, whereas I know Planet Coaster is going to have a lot more added.
Mm-hmm.
But I love them both, for various different reasons.
Right on. Ryan, you got a pick?
You're muted, bro.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm like 33, 33, 33.
Okay.
From like a game design standpoint, I think that Hitman has a chance to be my favorite game of the year.
Okay.
And if we're looking at it from that spectrum, the other one would be Inside. Like I think those two I can come up with like really high-minded praise for that kind of fits that. In terms of like stuff that I had the most fun with this year, Overwatch, I think, is probably number one, and maybe Enter the Gungeon as well. Like, I think that those all have a chance to be, like, number one. And that's probably, like, 4 of my top 5 right there. And then what do you put in the last slot? I don't know. Possibly XCOM 2, I think, would have a shot.
It's a tough year, man.
I would probably fit Ultimate Chicken Horse in there over XCOM 2, to be honest with you. I really think that game, it's like the inverse Inside. Like there's a lot, Inside is like a short, curated experience that I found like intellectually stimulating and like it piqued my curiosity. Ultimate Chicken Horse is like, fuck it, we made platforms, you figure it out. They're like exactly the opposite games, but I really like both of them for different reasons. So,
the inverse of Inside. They should have just called it Outside. Yeah. Comedy. All right. Cool. Well, there we go. Game of the Year 2016. Got a smorgasbord of choices for you. But this is a great year, man. I'll say it again. There's just so much good shit to play. So enjoy.
It's a good year for games.
Yeah. I could have given you 5 games that I think should all be Game of the Year easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice thing to be able to do.
Indeed. All right, let's go ahead and real quick here to everybody's favorite segment. It's Ask Roundtable, weekly segment. You can send in your questions to roundtableyt@gmail.com. Also want to mention a big thank you again to Madrina's Coffee, sponsoring this episode. You can't see it right now, but I'm going to hold up the can to the camera anyway. madrinascoffee.com/shop. You can use the code RoundtableCoffee. Save 40% off any purchase online. You can also go to madrinascoffee.com/roundtable and enter to win free coffee for a year. It's a real good deal. This week's question for Ask Roundtable comes from Brendan. He says, can you each pitch an idea for a VR game that you wish someone would make? So I'll start. I need I didn't think about this until this morning, but now that I've thought about it and kind of fleshed out the idea in my head, I think I need this. I need VR Shadow of the Colossus, and that's a pretty obvious choice. I will give that. I will cede that. But it would be so cool, wouldn't it? It would be so awesome, man. Imagine using your little Vive controllers. You're like climbing up the back of a Colossus. You can pull it out and fucking stab the thing.
I don't know that game would work in first person, though.
You don't know till you try.
Okay.
I think it would be so cool. And you could see like the Colossus turning its big old head around and it's looking at you. And he's just this tiny little guy on its back and you see these giant constructs in front of you. I think that would be incredible.
I think it would be swaying and you'd be throwing up the whole time.
Yeah,
I
probably.
would be, that's for damn sure. Puking. My
The scale would be cool. I agree with that, though.
Yeah. What's the VR game you guys want?
Is there like a VR game yet where you play as the mayor of Zion from the third Matrix movie? He gets in that sweet like power suit and is just shooting down sentinels as they
got you.
land the city. Like that seems pretty cool to me. Apart from that, let me make the smarmy answer, which is like a game instead of just
a
mechanic.
tech demo. Yeah.
Yes.
He's so clever.
Elite Dangerous is that.
Elite Dangerous, yeah. It's not a VR game exclusively, but it is very much a game.
VR game.
My choice would be essentially making a game that is akin to Shenmue, but from a first-person perspective, where you get to live out your life in a role that you would never probably find yourself in, and you go to your job at the warehouse and operate a forklift, and then you go home and you arrange little figurines on your shelves in VR. I swear, this is the stupidest shit, but I'm completely serious.
You're totally serious? That's great.
It's not a joke. I actually would play that and be very happy to do it.
All right. All right.
It's weird escapism for me. I really enjoyed that. And I love Shenmue, by the way.
What do you need, Mathis? What do you need in your life?
Oh, I don't think I have one. I think Elite Dangerous is the game I've always wanted.
That's kind of what I felt too, actually. Yeah. It's
I've always loved space sim, sci-fi stuff, and to be able to like live that out in VR is awesome.
It's seriously unbelievable. Like, I know I've already oversold the hell out of this, but just every part of this that comes together has created that visceral, unbelievable experience that I did not think would be real when I was a teenager. You know, it's here though. It's in my room. It's so cool.
Yeah,
it is awesome. Yeah, there we go. Brendan, thank you for the question. Appreciate it, man. If you got a question, you can send it into roundtableyt@gmail.com. We'll do our best to answer it. And let's go ahead and everybody's favorite segment after their favorite segment. This next Weird Games. Let me get this. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Close your chats, everybody.
Next Weird Games. Probably Japanese and an RPG. They're next Weird Games. Next Weird Games.
Next Weird Games every week is brought to you by Madrina's Coffee as well. You can go to madrinascoffee.com/shop. Use the code Roundtable Coffee. There it is. There it is. 40% off of every single purchase. Nick has weird games. He's going to describe them to us. We're going to try to guess what they are. Here we go.
I'm going to run out of games pretty soon unless I start bringing in indie games from my Steam library, by the way.
All right.
So just be aware. We might need to transition to something else. Maybe we could have a thread on the Reddit about what we might do instead.
I'm surprised that 70 episodes in, you're running out of supplies. That's interesting.
Well, I just feel like I'm stretching them a bit more than I was. At first, it was really easy, and now I actually got to put some time in thinking about what would be weird enough for the show.
I was being a little facetious. It is kind of insane that you've been able to keep this up for so long.
All right, so we've got a game today for the Xbox 360, which is not a thing we often do because it's much more recent, so there's a much higher chance that you'll know it. But we're talking about a game today that was released in 2008, developed by Tri-Ace, and published by Square Enix. I said Onyx again. Now I'm going to get called out. So this is an RPG, as you probably figured out by being Square Enix. You control a main character named Capel from a third-person perspective with 3 other characters controlled by AI. You fight battles with a team of 4, or sometimes as multiple teams formed from a possible 18 characters. The big selling point of the game is that all throughout the story, there are real-time decisions that you make that affect the outcome of the story. They occur at any time throughout, and even when you're going through the inventory menu, if you can believe that.
So wait, hold on a second. The main character's name is Capel?
Capel.
Like the word apple with a C
or is
in
it
front.
Capel? Maybe it's Capel.
Oh, okay.
Capell.
Good lord, man. Like, there were so many fucking stupid, terrible Square Enix RPGs on the 360. I can just start listing them.
All right, start listing them.
Let's see. One, I remember, I don't think this is it. I remember one that came out. I don't know. Was it an RPG? Was it even Square Enix?
Chat's gotten it already, by the way.
Shit, okay.
So there was like Eternal. Wasn't there like Eternal Sonata, which is like that musical one? Was that Square Enix?
Maybe, yeah.
There was,
I never actually bought that, but I always wanted to.
my friend played the shit out of it. I remember there was one that was super hype and ended up being like mediocre at best. I think it was like Infinite M Discovery.
Yeah,
I remember that name. That was a great name.
I remember seeing. I know I never played it. I remember stocking it and people loving it or excited for it. Never played it. There was a game. And I'm just thinking of weird games. Remember Vampire Rain for the 360?
Yeah, that was Trash Central, wasn't it?
It was awful.
This should be the new segment once you're out of games is Mathis remembers weird games.
Bullet Witch was another really fucking weird one.
Is it Blue Dragon?
Nope.
Blue Dragon wasn't Square Enix. Blue Dragon was great, though.
Is that a launch time? No, it was just
Yeah,
after
when was
launch.
Blue
It was one of
Dragon?
the first.
Blue Dragon was awesome, and then they also came out with
I remember this. 2006, yeah.
they came out- what was it? Was it Last Remnant that they came out with, or was it, no? Lost Odyssey was the one they came out with. Last Remnant was another one, I think.
You are hitting most of the list more than I expected you to be able to.
These are all. Yeah, I don't know. Was I right with any of them?
Hasn't gotten right yet, apparently.
No, you have, but I don't want to call attention to it.
Oh,
I don't know
Which
one,
one was it?
I have no idea.
was it Blue Dragon?
No.
It's not Blue Dragon.
All right.
I played that, and it's definitely not Lost Odyssey because I played that as well. Lost Odyssey was super good.
Wait, Mathis
There's
already
also
said it?
Last Remnant. That's another one.
Huh? Last Remnant.
Last Remnant was another one, but
Yeah.
not this one.
Did I play Last Remnant? I don't think I did. Well, if I hit it, I hit it, but I didn't hit it on purpose, so I don't deserve the points. I'm just listing games at this point.
The game was originally meant to transition between day and night every 10 minutes, giving the player different opportunities. For instance, stealth would be easier at night. However, this system was later removed. Oh yeah, I remember we were getting talked about for like, how do we sell pre-orders on this game? And people were like, you can do literally anything.
Man, No Man's Sky came out 10 years ago? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
No,
like
I remember a
Halo 1.
large amount of hyperbole.
Mhm.
And this is the example. When you're running away from a hunting dog, you can distract him by dropping apples from the trees. However, the guards might catch you and when they hear the thud of the apples. That's such a Fable thing to say, isn't
Oh,
it?
it really is. Yeah, that's a Molyneuxism for sure.
Yeah.
Bullet Witch
Molinism.
wasn't an RPG, right?
I think it was a character action game, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm throwing in the towel for this one.
All right, towel's been thrown. Mathis did name it, though. This was Infinite Undiscovery.
Okay,
Yeah.
man.
Look at that! Yeah, that cover. Wasn't there like a lot of hype behind that game, and then it ended up being garbage?
Based on name alone, I fucking love it, man.
I don't think it was garbage, but I don't think it did great either. Yeah, it was middle of the road, average reviews. I see some 6s out of 10 and stuff like that.
That sounds right. Last Remnant was the same way, right? I think so.
Yeah, it was. All right, so somebody in chat got it, but it scrolled so far because of the Kappa check. I can't tell you who it was. So
Somebody threw a Kappa check in the middle of Nick's weird games.
congratulations, whoever got it. I can't tell you now. Sorry,
Destroying our game integrity, man. Damn it.
I know somebody got it, so congrats.
Cool. Well, awesome. Hey, thank you very much, everybody, for watching another episode of Roundtable Live. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week. I believe we are shooting for... We actually have to reschedule next week, so we won't be on Friday. Thursday at 7 Pacific. Does that sound right? I think. Yes? Everybody?
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
All right. That's our tentative plan. You can follow us on Twitter at RoundtablePC. We'll definitely confirm the time next week. But that will be our 2016 indie review show, so it's going to be really exciting, really fun. We're going to be running down all of our favorite indie titles, including some we've already mentioned today for our favorites of the year. And, yeah, so we'll be back then, and we'll be taking the final week of 2016 off, but of course we'll be back at the regular time of Fridays at 3 o'clock Pacific come the start of 2017. But yeah.
The reason they did a Kappa check is because the main character's name is Capel.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even get it
Okay.
until now.
Mhm. I understand now. That's totally justifiable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, okay, but that is it. So thank you very much again for watching. We appreciate it. You can catch the VOD on our YouTube channels. It's all of us, BaerTaffy, Rockley, Smile, Mathis Games, Northern Lion. You can also subscribe to the show on iTunes and rate it there as well. You can check out the show discussion on the subreddit, Roundtable Pod... Sorry, I always get them mixed up. It's roundtablepodcast.reddit.com, right? Yes, that's good.
Yep.
And, of course, the Twitter at RoundtablePC as well. Thank you very much to our patrons over on patreon.com/roundtable for their support, which include Julian Avelsgaard, Jonathan Graham, General Crunk, Christopher Flagg, Oren Saltzman, Scrotty119, Colby Klein, Mavier, Greenlight, Isaac, oh yeah, you like that, don't you, Odale? Mediocrities, Brizzlebrit. I miss people introducing nicknames to themselves on Patreon. That's fun. Brizzlebrit, Bozatron, Myth Scarab, Eric Schooley, and Justin, thank you guys very much for your continued support over there. We really appreciate that. We actually saw a little bit of a surge over there on the Patreon, so thank you guys for the new pledges. It's very kind. And thank you very much, of course, for watching as well. We will be back next Thursday is the plan. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Goodbye.